Hello, everybody. It's the Transatlantic Call-In Show today. What is today? Today is August 13th, the year 12,026. I am having, okay, there we go. Audio feedback has stopped now. Anyway, this is a call-in show where we take your calls, and for some reason my camera is super blown out. We're having an amazing start to the show. Yeah, I'm Luxander, and today I'm joined by Riverboat Jack. Hi, how are you?
Howdy. I'm doing great. Just got back from a vacation to the North
Yes.
Shore. I'm a little like I when you were like, "What day is it?" I was like, "It's Tuesday, obviously," and that is incorrect.
That is
So,
incorrect. Yeah.
we're all completely on the ball today.
We're so combobulated.
Yeah.
We've got everything together. Yeah, everything is great. Um, yeah, I had a final yesterday and I had therapy last night, and therapy was a little bit rough. So even though I did sleep for 9 hours, apparently, according
Ooh.
to my watch, I am still feeling it today. So, that's what happens when you do like a shorter term summer. Like, so you're packing what's normally a longer class into a shorter period of time.
Mm.
So just in crunch time for me right now. Anyway, we are trans and we're here to take your calls. If you're just coming in, hit the like button. It immediately boosts us in the algorithm. It gets more people in here. We'd love to get some more viewers, more chatters, more callers. Very important. 720-619-2288 is our phone number. We will have lines open and taking calls for about 2.5 hours usually, before we move on to super chats. And then our next show we have coming up is going to be, I think, Ari and Jovan today, so that I can go work on my paper.
Let's
Let's
go.
go. Yeah. So any topics that you're interested in baiting people today, Jack? I mean,
I
obviously, we'll get into our polls in a second because that's partially what that's for. But yeah, what else is going on?
like honestly, I just want like the most arrogant and egotistical conservatives out there to call in. Like y'all, like I get antagonized by you folks nonstop every day on my show. You guys
Mm,
coming in stating what you believe to be facts, and then like every single time I'm like, well, I do a call-in show on Thursdays. You
mm,
can call in tomorrow. And you're all like, oh, yeah, I'll definitely do it. And then you never show up. You never show up.
right.
You never show up. It's so frustrating.
Oh my God, hold on. I'm sorry. I don't know why it switched to automatic exposure, and then I turned it on manual exposure and it went way
Oh,
dark. So we're
oh
just gonna, sorry,
no.
we're doing it live, everybody. I'm so sorry. I just wanted to fix that because it was really bothering me to have a shiny forehead. So anyway, that's a little bit better. Cool. All right. Perfect. So yeah, your arrogant dads, your weird
Yeah.
uncles, your weird drunk uncles, the drunkles.
Yeah,
Send this video to them.
the conservatives who are too cowardly to say anything until they get like 3 beers in them on Thanksgiving, and then they like
Yeah.
find like the youngest member of their family to berate.
They like
Like we
corner the
want
person, the
those.
one liberal in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one blue-haired like nephew or niece that they have, like let get them to call in. That is
Mhm.
my ideal TACIS call, you know?
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, we've got some debate topics rotating on the lower third as well. We think that trans kids deserve transition care. We don't just support it for adults, we support it for the youth as well. And oh my God, what else? What else controversial do I think? Trans women belong in women's sports, but more radically than that, I think we should completely desegregate sports. That's my hot take
Mhm.
of the century. And I'm trying to log into the staff Q&A tool, so I need to actually devote some resources to that for a second.
I just think we need to have like I don't know, do we need even like more topics like trans people are human beings.
True.
For whatever reason, that seems to be
That's a hot one.
mildly controversial. Like, oh, hey, trans people shouldn't be sexually harassed in the workplace.
Hmm.
That also seems to be pretty controversial. I had somebody in my comments the other day saying that, you're trans. Shouldn't sexual harassment be really gender affirming for you? And I guess if you think that, like, call in.
Yeah,
Like let's get spicy about it.
that is really interesting. I mean, I think that I've seen people kind of like ironically make jokes about it. but it's obviously it's still demeaning. And like just because you have reached your target gender doesn't mean that it doesn't feel bad to be treated badly as a woman. Like especially if it's accurate, because like obviously I'm non-binary and I get treated badly as a woman sometimes, and I'm just kind of like, that was weird. Like I don't know. I obviously I'm like, yeah, that sucks, but also I feel I just it's more peculiar than anything to me. Like when a man interrupts me a lot, I'm like, that's really interesting, more than I'm hurt by it. But you're a woman, and so obviously you're gonna be like, oh, you think less of me because I'm a woman and I am one, and it hits different. So yeah, misogyny is not fun, gender affirming stuff.
Yeah, I don't think anybody, like I can understand, like there are nuances to it, of course, but like
Sure.
I don't think bigotry is ever really a positive thing for, affirming
Typically
oneself.
not.
No.
Typically not desirable. Um, well, let's see. What do we got going on over here? Let's go ahead and talk about the poll from last week because I don't remember what it was. And I would love to, just kind of vamp a little bit while we let the lines fill up. Okay, after 2 years of reviewing, oh yeah, the evidence
Yeah.
for trans youth care. How do you think the Dutch review ruled? Were you here? Did
I
you talk
I
about
I
this?
I wasn't here for this, but I
Okay.
did read up about it. So
Yeah.
I did not know what the poll was until right now.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Well,
I do
yeah.
know
So, if
this.
did you go over it? Like, tell me some stuff about it if you know anything.
Oh, I didn't go over it in detail. I was on
Mm.
vacation, but like
Mm-hmm.
I read that the Dutch review is essentially like, yep, we
Pretty
should in
much.
fact have gender affirming care. Yep, it turns out, oh wait, yeah, it's actually really great for everybody who receives it. So,
Yeah,
you
that's pretty
know,
much what I understand about it. I didn't end up reading it further in depth, but when people are like, "What about the cast review?" I can be like, "Well, what about the Dutch review?" And then we're at a stalemate, and we'll have to talk about something else.
yeah,
That's not usually how it works, but that's I don't want to talk about the fucking cast review. I don't want to
it's
debunk the
so
cast review
bad.
for the 80th million time. So
Yeah.
I would rather just be like, well, I have another thing that says nah, so let's just talk about something else because obviously, if I think your data is bad and you think my data is bad, then we can't come to a conclusion by referring to data. We have to
Yeah.
have a different kind of conversation about trans youth care.
I gotta be honest.
Yeah.
My position on the cast review is just anybody who is citing it as if it is a useful thing just does not care about data. It like is just using it because they know it's a useful prop for their position.
I mean, maybe I could give the benefit of the doubt that a person doesn't understand how to evaluate whether a source is reliable. Like I just had a writing an essay class that was basically like, let's teach you how to do research, scholarly research, how to evaluate a source, how to like identify whether a source is academic or whether this is something that you would find in a magazine. Um, and like how reliable is that source? And like
Yeah.
obviously, like I come from a skeptic background. I think you kind of do too. So we have this background already. I didn't need to have logical fallacies explained to me, but a college student who is, 12 years younger than me might need that explained to them. And
Well,
I'm
and
glad that that was there in that
a,
class, just saying.
like a lot of our educational system is not built around teaching like media literacy.
Well, yeah,
And
exactly.
it's why like when you look at online video game communities, for example, you'll see people like leading hate brigades against reviewers who like reviewed a game and gave it like a lower score because they're
Yeah.
like, oh, you just dislike it because you're an social justice warrior, whatever. And it's like, well, no, like if you actually read the review, it goes into more depth about what is being said by like the mechanics, what's being said by like the different systems in the game, the narrative,
Mm.
etc. Like it's actually more complicated because there's a lot more being said than what a lot of people actually are picking up because they are not literate in the medium.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to pick things up because the story is telling you something and you're supposed to be able to process it. I did watch my first movie recently, and we're getting on a little bit of a tangent. I promise we'll
Your
circle
first
back around
one?
to the point. Yeah, I watched my first movie recently that has the specific problem of being tailored to be a second screen experience, where
Mm.
you're watching the film and then the film like tells you what you just watched, kind of like instead of
Oh,
being like, aha, there was a twist, and you get to enjoy being like, oh, there was a twist. It's like, let's explain the twist to you. The movie was Section 31, by the way.
oh
Terrible, terrible
no.
film.
Oh
And
no.
yeah, so that's a fun thing. Anyway, that was a little bit of a tangent. Sorry, I like talking about movies. Let's talk about the poll from this week. We do have someone in our queue waiting to talk to us about the trans youth medicine issue. So we are excited to get into that call in a moment. For now, we're going to let you think on this while we take a couple calls, and then we'll circle back around to this in a second. There should be a version of this for you guys to vote on in the chat there. Does forcing trans men into women's restrooms make anyone safer? And just, I guess, as a brief explainer, like the laws that pass that say trans people have to use certain bathrooms, that usually means that a trans man who has a beard and wants to look like a man is legally required to use the women's restroom with the women. So think on that. Get your answers in the chat and everything. And I feel like I have some other announcement to make. If I didn't already say it, click the like button. Do it now. It's quick, it's easy, it's free. It boosts us in the algorithm. Uh, Subscribe if you're not subscribed. What else do we have? Click the bell. We have, check out the Patreon and do your
Oh,
$5 plus super
yeah.
chats.
With hashtag Team Lux or hashtag Team Jack if you want us to do a silly little debate at the end.
Exactly, exactly. We read those at the end if they're $5 or more. So get those in if you want us to see your comments. With that,
Wait, before
what
we don't
what's up?
before we dive in, for
Please.
clarification, you have seen more movies than just Section 31, right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, okay,
It's the
okay.
first
You're
movie
just
I've
like,
seen that had this particular issue that I've heard
okay.
people talk about. I just switched away from my sentence at an inconvenient ADHD moment. I've seen many movies. In fact, I
You,
just recently watched the Wachowskis' first film, Bound,
ooh,
which is a lesbian noir, and I highly recommend watching it because it's got lesbian sex in it, and
hell
also it's a
yeah.
noir, so that's cool. And it's also very The Matrix. Like you can feel how it's like, oh, this is I can see where one thing led to the next thing. Um, Anyway, let's go ahead and talk to Juju, he, him pronouns from New Jersey. We love callers from New Jersey. Juju, you are live on the line with Luxander and Riverboat Jack. How's it going?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Doing all right.
Doing all right. You want to talk about minors accessing gender affirming care? Tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, so to be just forthright, I was on Jovan's call-in show earlier, and he
Mhm.
pointed me to a lot of his resources. We had a very, very brief conversation, which mainly entailed me just demonstrating I'm ignorant to the topic. But after reviewing most of what he provided, I don't want to impose like his standard because there is no universal standard for like what should be considered treatment.
Mhm.
But within Jovan's resources, he stated treatment should be advised if it demonstrates a favorable risk-benefit profile for treatment versus non-treatment. I think that's almost verbatim what he said.
Yep, that is how medicine is done. Yep.
Okay. So with that, like as a granted first premise, I'd simply just, my contention would only be that it hasn't sufficiently demonstrated a favorable risk-benefit profile for treatment versus non-treatment in minors. There is better evidence with adult outcomes, and we get more every day.
What do you think gender affirming care in this context means?
I suppose I should have said that. So his particular claim at that point had to do with trans youth, so it wasn't entailing things like hermaphroditic cases or stuff like intersex. Like obviously those are much
I think
different
that what Jack
cases
is
than
asking
like
about
a
is
gender dysphoria.
what do you understand as far as interventions are concerned? What do you understand the medical interventions to be that we are discussing that trans youth may be receiving?
Yeah.
So from what I understand, it initially starts with just being around like psychologists. There's not typically like a medical intervention in terms of like hormones right away or surgeries or anything like that. So I'm pretty sure it starts with psychological evaluation, and then mostly things that are centered around just patient and doctor like talking, not actual like hormone therapies. But then I believe after that it goes into hormone therapies, and then may even in certain places end up with surgical care.
Well, I mean, I would say you missed a big step that is really important to talk about when we're talking about trans youth, which is puberty pausing medication, which gives them 2 additional years to be evaluated before cross-sex hormones might be introduced. So given that that is such a huge element, and it's like, and that's such a contentious part too, Juju, of like when people call in, puberty blockers are a central part of this conversation. And when people discuss it, it's a central part of the conversation. So I really doubt, based on your description of your understanding of the topic, that you have read up enough about this to have a confidence about whether there is enough evidence of demonstrating that there is a benefit versus the risk for trans youth specifically.
That might be the case. That might be the case.
Because everything I've read has indicated that it is hugely beneficial, especially since the barriers to accessing care are so much higher for youth. Like, I, as an adult, can walk into a Planned Parenthood and say, I want to access this care, and they will just give it to me on an informed consent model. But a child has to do the psychology and the has to be persistent and consistent with this for several years, and they have to do the puberty blockers before they get to do the cross-sex hormones. So yeah, I am not really seeing a situation where children, we need to have an even higher barrier, because it seems like we already do a pretty good job of not putting any kids even on puberty blockers who aren't going to persist with that.
Yeah, I mean, the outcomes in terms of regret are definitely something that I haven't looked into enough. That wasn't really the angle that I was, like, in my head, having a hard time reconciling, was the regret outcomes. It was more to do with, like, the lack of evidence for that, you know? In my mind, if we're going to advocate for treatment, like, there should be, the default shouldn't be advocate for the treatment until evidence is presented. Otherwise, from what I read from what Jovan provided, I saw a lot of information about adult outcomes, but I just, looking on my own and within his own resources, I didn't see too much to point at outcomes for children. And even within some of those own studies, they say that it's very low certainty, that sometimes when they're talking about like suicide rates, like the identity might not necessarily be the thing causing the suicide rates, in terms of like non-treatment, like non-treated transgender youth having a higher suicide rate. So just from the literature and what I was reading that was provided, I just don't see sufficient evidence yet. Not saying that there isn't.
So I guess it seems like you're not hung up on, because some people get hung up on, the potential early intervention, which would be more social, like using a preferred name or preferred pronouns for a child. And it doesn't seem like you're getting hung up on necessarily puberty blockers or hormone replacement therapy. You're kind of taking issue with the entire thing, largely on the premise of just like you haven't seen enough positive evidence for it. Is that kind of it? Did I summarize that right?
More or less. But I wouldn't say I wouldn't outright say that I'm not concerned with the hormone introduction or puberty blockers. I think that is a part of the risk management profile. That being said, I'm not the person to interpret it, and the stuff that I've seen interpreted just hasn't demonstrated, from what I can see, and even from their own admissions sometimes, like a very low confidence that this is.
So do you know why there's a relatively low confidence in some of these studies?
Probably because it's very hard to determine the causality in terms of like a lot of the outcomes they describe.
It's also because we're talking very small sample sizes. You know, we're talking about a very small fraction of a very small minority of people. And so a lot of these studies aren't able to source, you know, thousands of trans youth. Most of the studies that do are meta studies that combine, you know, a dozen or more different studies together to like make broader claims, right? But the reality is there are many studies on trans youth and the positive outcomes of gender affirming care. Um, there's just a lot, and a lot of the observed data from these studies indicates. You know, I just pulled up one here. This is from 2022, mental health outcomes in transgender and non-binary youths receiving gender affirming care. And in this study, they observed 60% lower odds of depression and 73% lower odds of suicidality. And they're in a position to collect that data specifically because of the requirement for gender affirming care to have these youths in proximity to mental health specialists who are able to evaluate them along those lines. And so we have actually some pretty solid data from the aggregate amount of kids going to go and see specialists for, you know, various mental health conditions as well as their gender dysphoria. So like the kind of the point I'm trying to get across is that we do have a huge amount of data, and that's why it is the recommended path of care. It didn't become the recommended path of care for, you know, the mainstream doctor associations in America or in most of the world because, you know, they were just so woke. It became like that because there was data to support the outcome of like, and that's really kind of what a lot of folks who are opposed to like trans rights or trans medical interventions, that's really the big barrier there for folks like that, because the data overwhelmingly indicates that it is positive for the folks who need it to receive gender affirming care.
Okay, I'm trying to also read the study that you cited at the same time. Sorry. So, I mean, I do see a lot of these studies that are along these lines. It is a 12-month outcome though, that they're analyzing outcomes after 12 months, and it doesn't touch too much on potential harms from the treatments themselves, which, I mean, I don't want to overemphasize the harms as if they're like the majority of cases, but when harms are permanent, and as in some cases some of the harms that can come from these treatments can be, I think that should be factored into the risk assessment profile a little bit heavier, just in the sense that
okay, Juju,
a permanent outcome should outweigh a finite outcome.
Yeah, okay. Okay, doctors do make this assessment. We make risk analysis in terms of this person might regret this decision. Unfortunately, one of the outcomes on the table for not introducing this care is a dead child. So when you're like, I think we should weigh the potential regret, and I think you said earlier that you haven't even investigated the detransition rates. It's like 1% of people who access this care detransition. And of that number, the majority later end up retransitioning, and they report that they detransitioned because of social pressure or because they couldn't find a job or something practical like that, some material problem that they were experiencing, and not because they don't identify as transgender. So it's really annoying for you to be like, I think we should weigh more heavily the potential idea that these kids might regret this, when I've already explained that these kids have to be persistent, insistent, and consistent with their gender identity for literally years before they even get a medicine to pause their puberty, which is critical time. Because guess what, Juju? Permanent things happen during puberty. And trans people have to spend tens of thousands of dollars getting those things corrected. So that's money that we could be spending like stimulating the economy, but instead it's going to, a surgeon or like big pharma. Like there's people who, have this whole big pharma scare. So that's money that's not going to local businesses or my local farmers market. That's money that I'm not being able to stimulate the economy with. I had to take time off work to get surgery, et cetera. Like trans people have like we are aware that these are permanent changes. So when you're talking about the relative risks for children, the fact that those permanent changes from puberty can cause ill effects, including death, like somebody, being so distraught by these things that it causes them to commit suicide. And like that is not entirely uncommon for this community specifically. That is what doctors all take into account. So yes, the potential for risk of regret is on the table, but like, can you understand how it really hits? Like, as somebody who is a member of the community who like has people in my social circles who've committed suicide, like how that strikes me as really kind of annoying. Like, I'm trying to keep my language gentle
Yeah.
because you haven't been an asshole about it, but I am annoyed.
Yes. Obviously, yes, suicide is a permanent outcome as well, and in the harm benefit risk assessment, that in the same standard that I'm saying permanent outcomes should be more heavily weighed, that is also an example that has to be heavily weighed, is
So
suicidality.
I guess my like I've been trying to kind of zoom in on where your disagreement is because you seem to be like acknowledging, hey, this is a pretty big deal. This is a life and death issue for trans youth. But you're worried about permanent effects. So, like I was talking about earlier, um, I guess like when we're talking about those permanent effects that you're worried about, where does that worry
Mhm.
come in? It doesn't seem like it would be about like social transition with like names or pronoun usage, experimentation in children. Is it when it comes to puberty blockers? Is that your concern?
It can start there. There are some outcomes that are permanent from puberty blockers, but it doesn't seem to me to be
Not that I
as
know
much of a
of.
risk as like
Can you
hormone
explain that?
treatments.
Because that's not what I've heard. My
Oh,
understanding is that if they're you can only take them for about 2 years before some permanent effects can set in. So there are limitations with it. But if you take it for 2 years as prescribed and then you stop taking it and either you start cross-sex hormones or you let natal puberty take over, my understanding is that there aren't any permanent effects of puberty blockers. So please tell me about that because I want to be correct on that.
okay. Here, one moment. Let me make sure I'm not ass talking and actually bring a study to the table.
Yeah.
One
Because
moment.
if you stay on the
Um,
if my understanding is if you stay on them for longer, it can cause bone density problems. Um,
yes,
but
that was
aside from that, I don't know of any.
And my understanding is
that was
that
one of the ones.
usually my understanding is that usually with puberty blockers, and we know this because we have a ton of data from people who've begun puberty, early onset puberty who are cisgender,
Yeah.
that those problems correct themselves whenever you go through like either your natural puberty or taking HRT. So a lot of the problems that are described in like warnings around puberty blockers are like Lux said related to prolonged usage or to just like a short-term effect that is then addressed by either your naturally bodily process or medical
Yeah.
intervention.
Like if a little 8-year-old girl starts her period and then goes on puberty blockers, then it's going to stop her having her period, and then she's going to start it again when you take her off the medicine, and it's just going to be like it never stopped in the first place.
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, only as you said, all I can see within the 2 year effects would be the bone density dropping, and if I remember what you said correctly, once HRT starts, those things start to level out.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they like I take testosterone suppressants, and they tell you when they give those to you that like if you just take these and you don't take any estrogen, you're going to have bone density issues because
Yeah.
people need a certain amount of hormone in their system in order to maintain that bone density.
Mm.
And puberty blockers do a very similar thing by suppressing hormone activity. So like when the hormones are reintroduced by stopping puberty blockers, those problems go away.
Okay. So, in terms of puberty blockers, then okay. So puberty blockers on that risk management profile don't seem too unfavorable. When does HRT get in? You said after the 2-year mark, that's when the HRT is introduced typically.
Yeah, it will depend on like what doctors do. They will do blood work periodically while puberty blockers are being used, and also when HRT is introduced. I've been on HRT for many years, and I still go in and get my blood work done so that they can like make sure all the hormone levels are right. And like what winds up happening is that they actually have a much better idea of where those children's hormone levels are, and so are better able to manage them than even some like cisgender folks. Um, because they're going in to get that blood work done and have that specifically managed. So HRT tends to be introduced after a couple years of both, analysis, making sure kids are, staying persistent, and then kids make a choice about who they want to be. And then doctors are like, okay, let's go for this. And if they find out later, hey, maybe I wasn't right about that, well, there are also options to correct that. There are plenty of people who have detransitioned, though that is again a minority of folks in the trans community, and they're able to get interventions to help them get back to where they want their body to be.
And I will say, as like my understanding of how this works out practically is even when there are not laws, a lot of doctors' offices will have a policy like they don't do cross-sex hormones until age 16, which to me feels unreasonably late. But that's also like the medical age of consent in a lot of states. So a 16-year-old, if their parents decided to not get them vaccinated when they're a kid, a 16-year-old could go against their parents' wishes and go get vaccinated, right? Because they have the ability to medically consent, even though they're still a couple of years shy of like full legal authority over themselves. So yeah, in my family, like my younger sibling was not able to access it until the age of 16, even though they knew that they were trans for like a couple of years prior to that. So, and I think, I don't know why they didn't pursue puberty blockers. I don't know if it was just like it didn't make sense because they were late enough in puberty or something. But yeah, so in practicality, Juju, yeah, it's like, age 14 to 16, I would say is like the 14 would be probably the absolute earliest but I'm sure that there's probably outliers, but in general, it's the mid to late teens.
Mid to late teens is when they
for HRT is what you were asking.
Oh, for HRT.
Yeah.
For HRT.
Yeah.
So,
puberty blockers can be introduced. It's a particular stage of puberty called Tanner 2, which that hits people at different ages. So puberty, precocious puberty. I don't actually haven't looked into this. I think if a kid starts puberty at like 5 years old, I think they stay on the medicine until they're like 12.
And that's again because
fine.
Of that risk assessment of like prolonged usage of hormone blockers versus the harm going through puberty at 5 years old.
Which there's a lot. Yeah, precocious puberty like at 5 has a huge high risk mortality for all cause mortality bullshit. But for trans kids, we do follow this kind of 2-year rule, and then often they can't access cross-sex hormones until 16 anyway.
So in that case, that does seem like if somebody starts puberty at 11 or 12 or are introduced to the puberty blockers at that age because they start identifying with the opposite gender, um, or with their gender identity, I should say. But they can't get access to HRT until they're 16 in most states. Wouldn't that leave them on the puberty blockers past that 2-year period that would be considered typically safe?
I think probably the medical professionals would delay the onset of puberty blockers. They would be like, sorry, you're just going to have to deal with these 2 years of puberty and then you'll get blockers when you're 14.
Okay. Hmm.
Yeah.
And transitioning after puberty is, well, much more expensive, obviously, but
Yeah.
is it more harmful? Is it more well, I guess there's obviously,
I mean, you're kind of you're kind of also like, if you're like, well, everyone should wait to transition until after, their initial puberty. It's kind of like saying to children, you should just kind of undergo this, like, 6 to 8 year period of like uh incredible body horror being subjected upon you. Like,
Yeah.
if your body just started changing and you had no control over it and it was into something you absolutely knew you didn't want, it is intensely destructive to trans kids, like, mental health. And like, that's part of the reason why medical doctors and like medical organizations have noted that in their research. And it seems kind of like the only effective intervention is gender affirming care, which is why it is recommended pretty much universally.
Okay. So in that our harm benefit, like, weighing, obviously, I don't want to, sorry, I don't want to like derail and circle back, but I've been holding on to this in my head for a moment.
Yeah.
From when we were talking about suicidality, like, obviously that's a permanent risk that needs to be weighed heavily. And that's a strong example of why treatment, if it's determined the suicide is caused by the dysphoria, that the treatment might need to be introduced sooner. Where I would push back a little bit still is it, first with a question, has it been determined that the suicide rate is due to the dysphoria, or is it due more to like societal pressures, like other mental health issues that maybe come up from like socially transitioning and things like that, or just general non-acceptance? That would be my initial question.
It's both.
Yeah.
We have data that shows that, like, for example, parent or peer acceptance drastically reduces suicidality among trans youth. And we also have data that indicates that, like, gender affirming care has a positive impact on trans youth mental health and suicidality.
Yeah, and so yes, my understanding is that social things are a big part, and that even one supportive person can dramatically alter the like, bad mental health outcomes for a trans person. But also, I think it's really important to acknowledge that being denied access to medical care is a social rejection.
Yeah.
So you can't really extricate them. Like, if you go to the doctor and you're like, hey, I need this medicine, and they tell you no, like, that, it hits hard because that's an authority figure denying you access to something that you know that you need. Yeah. And like, I just also want to mention, as far as like irreversible impacts, even if we're not talking about a child who ever attempts suicide, that's like the experience. People are always like, oh, the irreversible damage of transition. But how about the irreversible damage of feeling suicidal, even if you don't kill yourself, or feeling lonely and disgusted with yourself, even if you never attempt suicide, for like 6 years? Let's say you realize you're trans when you're 12, you have to wait till you're 18. So 6 years of awkwardness and, not being able to do things that your friends are able to do, like not playing sports, having difficulty showering, having low grades. So maybe you permanently lose out on scholarship opportunities because you had low grades, because you had depression, because of your gender dysphoria. Now, I do understand the question of like, is this person suicidal because of their dysphoria? Or is it something else that they're dealing with? But that's why we want them to have comprehensive mental health support through the process. Because, it can be important to ascertain, like, are you depressed and you're looking for something to point at for, like, why are you depressed? Or are you gender dysphoric and that is causing a general malaise? So you can, like, that's the whole reason of having a therapist, and specifically people who are trained in child psychology. So we're not sending a 12-year-old to an adult psychologist. We're sending them to somebody who has expertise specifically in children's neuropsychology. Yeah.
And I would just like to throw out there that when we're talking about reductions in suicidality, or reductions in reported suicide attempts, we're talking about reductions of like 50 to 60% when it comes to like people who have access to gender affirming care or who have support of parents or peers. Another data point to use for this would be that I'm sure you're familiar that many states in the United States have passed anti-trans laws related to like bathroom use or schools in particular, school sports, etc. And there was a study that was published, I think in Nature, Nature Human Behavior. But it basically found that in states that passed anti-trans laws among 13 to 17-year-olds, after two years after the passage of said laws, their past year suicide attempts were 72% higher than before the passage of those laws. So the kind of social acceptance that gender affirming care seeks to provide, and also the medical interventions themselves, drastically reduce the level of suicidality. And that social acceptance is especially strong and in importance when it comes to parents and when it comes to friend groups and peers, but also when it comes to like the overall political situation in a state, because kids see these laws being passed and they lose hope that things are going to get better, that they're going to be able to get through this. And, some of them try to opt out. And so this isn't like a theoretical thing. A lot of us in the trans community, we know of, families who've lost kids because of these laws or because of these attitudes. And it's heartbreaking. I would never wish it on anybody.
No, I agree. And skepticism, where it is that I have aside, something that we definitely agree on is the importance of the introduction of like mental health care for these people. So like that's a point that we outright definitely agree on, especially when evaluating like suicidality. There's just having access to a mental health professional in and of itself can help. And as to what you're saying about society, yes, it wasn't very long ago that I remember reading an executive order from our president defining what gender is, wrongly, actually.
Yeah.
And I'm sure as a transgender youth, as a transgender person in general, as an intersex, or just anybody with their head on their shoulders will read that and then say, what world am I living in where some arbitrary authority gets to just define this for me? I completely get that. I'm reading some of the studies that we're talking about, and I do see what you're saying about reported outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with the suicidality. I think you said it was 60% better after transitioning.
Yeah.
I don't know if it specifies in here. I'm looking that in and of itself may. I'm just saying a possibility at this point. Would it be possible that also has to do with passing? Like, people will treat you differently until you're passing, and then
Yeah, but
all
like, how
those
do you
negative
extricate those
outcomes
things,
come out.
right? Like, I don't know if it's
Yeah,
possible because
that is
two
a
things
tough
are happening at
question.
the same time, Juju. First of all, I look in the mirror and I see what I want to see. And also, people who look at me are also able to see the same thing I can see, which is that the transition stuff is happening. So, like, I
Mhm.
would say it's impossible to isolate those. And um, I would say we're running into a place of like, you seem like your overall understanding of it. And I think we can agree that what the data does not show is a dramatic decrease in quality of life upon introduction of this medicine. Um, Especially not in like a statistically significant way. We're not seeing overwhelming amounts of regret, right? So what we are seeing is that so far the medical system seems to be pretty good, and by medical system, I am including mental health professionals because they're a necessary part of this process for youth. It seems like the system is doing a really good job of identifying the kids who need the medicine because there's a really low regret rate and a really low detransition rate. So there's a high bar people have to reach to be able to access the care when they're under 18. And the system seems to be working as intended in terms of like trying to make absolutely sure that we don't let anybody on the medicine who will not need it or who may regret it later. Um, so when we're starting to get into the myopia of like, is it the dysphoria that's causing the suicidality, or is it how you're being treated, or whatever? Like, I think that we're getting to a good stopping point where I think it's good for you to mull some stuff over and do some more reading. And if you have more questions, we'll be here again next week, or
Yeah,
I will be, I think.
I will be too.
Yay!
Yeah, that sounds good to me. Is there any like literature? And I know I'm putting you on the spot. Like, cite me a
I get.
That's not what I'm trying. Is there? Is
I
there
have a
anywhere
recommendation.
that could help? Okay, great.
Yeah, I have one recommendation that I'll give you, Juju, because this is going to be a gold mine of sending you on a bunch of different links to read up a bunch of different stuff. So what we have is an article on Medium by Julia
Mm.
Serrano, Serano.
Excellent.
And the article is called Gender Affirming Care for Trans Youth is Neither New Nor Experimental. And it gives a timeline of studies, a timeline and compilation of studies that have been done on this. So this is a Medium article, but she links to a ton of studies. And if you want to go down a rabbit hole, that's where I would point you to.
Okay, that sounds great. And I will call back in next week, hopefully.
Yeah, and
do my best to get through this by next week.
I would also encourage you just to look into regret rates for gender affirming care and gender affirming surgery, because that will kind of demonstrate the flip side of what we've been talking about, because we've mostly been talking about the positives in terms of like how people feel about their bodies and how they feel about life after gender affirming care. But also, you can see that the data we have on regret is, I would say, exceptionally good when it comes to low levels of regret. So I don't have a specific study to cite off the top of my head, but I will say that if you look into that, you will find that the regret rate is like incredibly low.
Yeah, and compare that to other medical procedures as well. Like it's remarkably low. Yeah. So thank you so much for the call, Juju. It was an opportunity to get into the data, and I appreciate that. So yeah, we'll talk to you again sometime.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Bye.
Shout out to Juju for redeeming the state of New Jersey.
Yeah, no kidding. That was lovely. It was like wait, we can have like controversial calls that don't devolve into name calling. That was great.
Yeah.
I loved it.
When people actually care about the data and it's like let's dig into the data, and this happens to be one of those situations where there is relatively little nuance in the data. There are other situations where we could, like the sports issue, there's way more nuance in that conversation, but as far as patient outcomes for gender affirming care, man, it's refreshing for someone to be like to come and be like, I read the data, I want to continue reading more and have that be the basis for my opinion, as opposed to like so often we get those people who, like I can't remember where I picked this up, but like people don't reason themselves into the position, so you can't reason them out of it.
Oh,
Anyway,
I
yeah,
guess one last point, if this gets put onto the VOD at whatever point.
go for it.
There's a great study editorial in the Journal of Adolescent Health called Misinformation Related to Discontinuation and Regret Among Adolescents Receiving Gender Affirming Care.
Okay.
And it specifically goes over just how most of the findings that show that purport to show like, oh, uh, you know, youth who end gender affirming care do so because they regret it.
Sure.
And what this piece points out is that equating discontinuation of care and regret is not at all that you cannot equate those two things.
Sure.
And I
Yeah.
think that that is the main confounding factor that a lot of people like who are in the transphobic kind of camp point to as
Mhm.
like, oh, look, trans youth shouldn't be receiving this care because look at this. Look at all the discontinuation.
Yeah. Because, like, maybe the person moved, so they
Yeah.
stopped going to your clinic, or maybe the study is being conducted at the mental health clinic, and maybe the person no longer needs mental health care because they're stable on their hormones. So they quote unquote stop going
Mhm.
to the gender clinic, but it's just because they don't need therapy anymore. So yeah, that is always a problem. That 80% number is classically mentioned, and it's just a desistance rate of people who stopped going to the clinic, which again, like you said, does not mean that they are not trans or that they didn't seek care somewhere else. Yeah, for sure. Okay, we're between calls. We do have somebody on the line that I'm looking forward to talking to. There are a couple people actually who I'm looking forward to talking to. Lines are still open. If y'all want to get in the queue, we are going to be taking calls for another like hour 45 minutes or so. So the number's on the screen, 720-619-2288. There is a web caller link in the description if you are calling from outside the US only. We will be reading super chats of $5 or more at the end of the show. Get your hashtag Team Jack, hashtag Team Lux votes in for our
Yes.
silly little competition at the end. And if you haven't hit the like button, that is quick and easy and free. And we appreciate it. It immediately boosts us in the algorithm. Probably one of the best ways that you can support the show. And I want to tell you a little bit about some of the other stuff that we've got going on the line right now.
Let's do it.
Let's go. So, Jimmy made the schedule all pretty and fixed it now, and I love it so much. But because it's in order. So today is the 13th, and so nothing tomorrow, and then our programming starts on Saturdays now with actually, oh my God, is this true on the schedule, Arden LineCon this weekend or? Because that's
Oh,
exciting.
yeah, I think so. Jimmy and I haven't talked about it. Normally he sends me the details by this point in the week if it's actually going to happen, but
Okay, so maybe in a week
we'll
or
see.
two. It's
Yeah,
scheduled there, but I
we'll
don't
see.
think it's actually scheduled. Okay, thank you. Devangelicals then will be our thing on Saturday, and then we have our triple threat Sundays with the Sunday Show, calling it now, and the Sunday Show After Dark. Who's going to be on these shows? We've got Dalton and Justin on the Devangelicals. On Sunday, you can look forward to the Promise and Seth show, followed by the Jovan and Jimmy show, followed by Matt Dillahunty and Paul Loja. Skeptalk. Oh, yeah, we've got our fucking 8-hour extravaganza Skeptalk next week with Erica and Forrest, with me producing. Don't feel bad for me. I make a lot of money. So then we've got Chewed Gum with Alyssa and Taylor, and Hang Up next week has. Do you have a guest next week for Matt? Anyway, Matt Dillahunty next week on the
Yes.
Hang Up.
Her name is Peach Braxton. We just got confirmation that we can publish that. So,
Nice.
yeah.
Yeah. So a new guest on the Hang Up. Let us know, by the way, in the comments if you have any guests that you'd like to see on this show in particular. We are looking to expand our guest slots at the very minimum as we scope out potentially more permanent hosts on TACIS. So if you know a trans creator who's already fairly well established and they are an atheist who can debate, let us know in the comments, and we're going to start scoping some people out. So Anyway, with all that said, let's look at the poll and then we'll start taking calls again. The poll from this week: does forcing trans men into women's restrooms make anyone safer? I feel like I got to tell people about this because it's from Kansas and it's me thing. So in Kansas, they recently passed a bathroom law. Actually, they've passed two bathroom laws.
Yep.
The first one wasn't enforceable enough, so they had to pass another one. And there's some trans men. If y'all go to Erin in the Morning's website, she's blogged about it most recently. That some trans men, I think throughout Kansas, in different places in Kansas, all kind of did this direct action all at the same time, where they went into the women's bathroom where they are legally supposed to be. Some other actions that we've seen have been like trans women protesting by breaking the law and using the women's bathroom. But this is a situation where these trans men are following the law by using the women's bathroom and having the cops called on them and all this kind of stuff, making a strong statement that like they shouldn't be forced to do this and that for the most part they're not going to anyway, but just kind of bringing attention to the absurdity of what this requires from people. The group is called the SB 244 Compliance Crew, and I love their cute little yellow t-shirts. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like forcing trans men into women's restrooms doesn't make anybody safer. And also, I'm not familiar with the specific coverage you're talking about, but I did read an excellent piece, and this is, a rarity from me in the New York Times.
Yeah.
Specifically, there was a great op-ed, and I think honestly, putting it in the op-ed section is doing the piece incredibly dirty because
Sure.
it's just straight up journalism. Like the writer like interviews all kinds of different trans folks from Kansas and the diaspora from Kansas and talks about their experiences with these anti-trans laws, and it's just horrifying. And the effort that is made in that article to talk about how it is horrifying for the people who are affected by it, but that it is also not just limited to the people who are immediately affected by it, that it is, in fact, a national problem that needs to be viewed as like a threat to one of us is a threat to all of us. It's not something that is compartmentalized. It's not something that is standing on its own, and we need to organize against it because the system that weaponizes itself against trans people can then be used to and weaponized against other groups that are, inconvenient to the state. And so I highly recommend people go check that out. Let me just pull up the name of it here.
Yeah. There's a vice versa about that too. Like, because my understanding is that some if like a trans person's if their ID isn't valid or if they're driving with an ID that doesn't match, that those cases can be referred to ICE.
Yep.
So like technically, even if you are a white trans person, if you live in one of those states where your ID has gotten fuckled, or even if you haven't had a chance to change your ID yet in a state where it is legal for you to change your ID, that those cases could be referred to ICE. So like all of our oppressions are intertwined. If you're a white trans person who kind of doesn't care about what's happening with ICE, you need to wake the fuck up.
And it's also one of those things where like if someone in this police system decides they want to ruin your life, they don't have to prove anything to refer it to ICE. They don't have to prove anything for ICE to like say we think you're actually undocumented. They don't have to prove that. It doesn't go through the same court system. And like if you do happen to get access to a lawyer in ICE custody, like you know the worst thing that happens for those people who abuse their power is they go, oops, sorry, and then you get out, days, weeks, months later, maybe. And so like it is a system that affects all of us. The piece that I'm talking about is What's Happening in Kansas Should Alarm Us All, by M. Gesson, who reports from Kansas and Colorado. Y'all should go check that out. Just published today. Very good stuff.
Yeah. With that, Yeah, if y'all have any other comments, you can make them on the posts page on our YouTube channel where we host more discussion on those poll questions. So feel free to add your commentary over there. And with that, we're going to go ahead and jump right back into calls. Thank you all for being patient on the lines. We are going to. Do you have a preference between 3 and 4, really, or what are you thinking?
Honestly, both are going to be fun. So
right.
let's dive into either.
We'll just take them in order then. All right,
Yeah.
we're going to talk to Nicholas, he, him pronouns from Switzerland, who wants to talk about trans people in nude shared spaces. Nicholas, you are live on the line with Luxander and Riverboat Jack. How's it going?
Hi, I'm fine. How are you?
Doing all right, doing all right. Tell me about
Wonderful.
this case. Tell me about what happened here.
Yeah, first of all, sorry if I may stutter a bit. I'm a bit nervous, and also English is not my first language, so
No
you
worries.
have to excuse that.
No worries.
So what happens essentially is a few weeks back, I don't remember the exact date, there was in a city in Switzerland, I think it was in Basel, they have a nude area that is separated by gender or by sex, and there was a trans woman. She was just chilling there in the women area, and she was kicked out over a cis woman complaining about her or being offended by her or whatever, because probably she didn't look like a woman to that cis woman. I don't know, maybe she had a penis or something. And I wanted to ask, like, how we should approach such topics, because like in regular women only spaces, I'm pretty clear about that. Obviously trans women belong there, but I can sort of, although I'm fully pro inclusion, I kind of see how this person, maybe it was an older woman, a cis woman, is coming from, because like nude areas are even more sensitive than regular women only or gender separated areas.
I mean, I've known old people who are trans, and I've known old people who are very pro-trans, so I don't think that oldness is necessarily something that I would factor in if I'm trying to be like, well, I understand where that person's coming from. I feel like so often we give old people a pass for their various faults because they're from a different time, but like, I'm sorry, but there were white people who helped slaves escape. So you can't fucking tell me that you're just a product of your time when it comes to racism, or whatever the issue is. I personally just don't agree with that framing. But also, and maybe this is an issue. I'm interested in Jack's opinion on this too. Actually, there is probably a gigantic cultural difference between us as Americans and you as a European when it comes to nudity. Like for us as Americans, we mostly don't have nude spaces. I mean, like there are some very, very specific spaces like saunas, which are known for like being gay male hookup spaces, so where the nudity can be normalized. But for the most part, we don't have like nude beaches. We don't have nude swimming. So, as trans people, obviously, we have a lot of anxiety about swimming, even with our swimsuits on as Americans. Like, when you ask a group of trans people what's one thing they would do if there were no cis people, they're all safe. There's nothing wrong with them. But if there were just no cis people tomorrow for 24 hours, what would you do? And an overwhelming amount of trans people say they would go swimming.
Yep.
So yeah,
like,
I mean,
like pools
yeah,
are
go for it.
scary. Pools are
Actively.
scary. Like as a trans woman, I love swimming. I love swimming a lot, but since I transitioned, I just don't go swimming because I am terrified.
Go lake swimming. You live in the land of lakes.
It's true, but also the land of lakes has a lot of people who go to the lakes.
That's fair. No, understandable.
But I guess part of me is just kind of like, if you're going to a place where people are going to be nude, complaining that somebody is nude seems like a very weird reaction to me.
Agree.
And like from what I understand, I just pulled up an article about this, gave it a quick look over. From what I understand about this, like weren't really doing anything. People just saw them and were like, I think maybe that's a trans person. And then it escalated to like them trying to harass this trans person, other people coming to the trans person's defense. And then like it got brought to the staff, and then the staff couldn't de-escalate, so they called the police. And then then you have a bunch of men police officers showing up
No
to
kidding.
this
God.
nude space, and then they assaulted this trans woman and arrested her, which prompted then protests outside the police station, and she had to be taken to the hospital. It really just seems like a messy situation all around. And apparently, just according to this article, the city of Bern has now apologized and critiqued their own police for their handling of the situation. So I guess like my stance on this is just, um, if you're going to a place where people are going to be nude, don't be surprised if people are nude. And if they're just nude and they're not really bothering anybody and they're minding their own business and they aren't doing anything that's objectionable, like I guess my take on it is just, if you feel uncomfortable, like that's your own issue. Like, don't make that other people's issue. Like
Do what
personally,
Jesus said and pluck out your eyes.
yeah, personally, I wouldn't be super comfortable going to a place in the nude surrounded by a bunch of other people in the nude. That's me personally. I wouldn't be comfortable with that. But if I went into that space, I certainly wouldn't be surprised to see other people nude, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, as you said a lot of things, but
yeah, no, I'm
sorry.
I agree. I agree with like pretty much all you said. I'm fully pro inclusion, and I also feel that like if you have a problem with someone being nude in the nude space, even if you for whatever reason don't agree or don't see this person in this case as a woman for whatever bodily, I don't know, appearances, then that's your own issue if you have a problem with that. Of course, I also see that. And yes, the city of Bern, apparently it was Bern, not Basel, apologized later, which I like. But the issue was kind of boiled up, yeah, as you said, afterwards.
Yeah, and I guess it's my perspective is just kind of like I don't, even before I transitioned and I was in like the men's locker room, like, my least favorite thing in the world was seeing like old men taking their clothes off at the gym. Because frankly, at least where I was and when I was younger, like old men at the gym get really weird when they're naked in the locker room. I don't know if that's a universal experience or not, but like I don't know, like that's what the locker room is for people to be naked and to change their clothes. And I wasn't surprised to see that happen, I guess, even though I felt uncomfortable. So I guess I don't know, like just I wish people had a more open attitude towards these things, because it kind of just seems like it boils down to, should trans women be expected to police themselves in order to appease people who would find them objectionable wherever they are, and like I don't think so. Like in an ideal world, I don't think we should be catering to um people who reject the ability of trans people to exist in spaces.
Imagine managing your own discomfort instead of policing other people's behavior and expecting them to coddle and accommodate you. Isn't that crazy? I just you as a person who was like using the locker room and was like, I don't like this, but I'm not really going to tell other people what to do. I'm just going to not look at them being weird. Like the ability, the self-awareness to be like, this is a me problem and not like an I'm gonna go to the fucking manager about this guy being weird in the locker room. Like, it's just a space for people, and when you're in a space for people, sometimes people are weird. Yeah, that bothers me so much. But anyway.
Yeah, and also in the end, it's like it comes to more or less down to the same thing, that if someone would complain that another person in the same place is like very fat, so I also don't necessarily want to look at fat nude people, but that's my issue. Yeah. So
totally.
And like it would also be like I know in the United States there have been multiple kerfuffles about you know, like, oh, trans women went to like a beauty salon to like have a Brazilian wax. But like there are places and then oh no, they got kicked out or something, or oh, it made the employees uncomfortable and they asked them to leave. But like those places have clear policies about like, oh, hey, we only do this for people who have vaginas, or we only do this for people who, you know, we you know, we can recommend this place if you have different equipment down there. And so like there's a difference there in like certain businesses will set expectations, and I'm obviously I don't know what the policies are in Bern, but if the policy there is just, you know, trans inclusion already, then like I'm not entirely sure, and I suspect it might be just from what I know of that area of the world. So like it just kind of seems like they're making their personal issue other people's issue.
Yeah, if you were to ask my opinion on how we should handle, you know, quote unquote, handle these situations, let's do what Planet Fitness does and ban the person who made a stink about a trans person existing in the gym. And like, you know, like, okay, you are weaponizing the bureaucracy of this business and potentially even the police against an innocent random person. That's fucking harassment. You're banned from our establishment. Don't ever come back. That's my opinion about what the appropriate response is for a person who complains about a trans person literally just fucking sitting there and doing nothing.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment, I guess.
Yeah. Well, Nicholas, do you feel like we've wrapped everything? I'll give you a last comments.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Thank you for your insights, and
awesome.
Have a nice rest of your day.
You too.
Thank you. You too. Have a good evening. Good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
I always think it's so funny. Like, obviously, this show is a little bit better than some of our other shows in that it is made so that a person who's across the ocean could participate. Like, obviously, we do it earlier in the day. But I do think it's very funny, like, having people call in at what I know is, you know, maybe like 8 or 10 o'clock at night for them. I'm like, what are you doing? Go to bed. Why are you up right now? But yeah. Anyway, don't forget to hit the like button, etc., all that bullshit. And then we've got another caller who I'm excited to speak to. Oh, by the way, if you're waiting in the queue and you have not yet heard from our call screener, she stepped away for a moment, but she'll be back in about 15 minutes. So we're going to take this call since we've already had a couple people who've been screened. But John, if you're waiting to be screened, Arden will be back in a few minutes. So just keep holding in tight there.
Yeah. And if anyone else gets calls in, you'll be in the screener for a little bit longer. Sorry about that.
Y'all should be able to just still, you know, hang out and enjoy the show anyway. But yeah, because I assume that they can hear us. Anyway, let's talk to Taylor. Taylor uses he, him pronouns, calling from Texas, who wants to talk about gender affirming care. Taylor, you're live with Luxander and Riverboat. Jack, how's it going?
Hi, nice to meet you. I'd like to introduce myself.
Sure.
I'm our new global leader, and I created our new global system. I believe in the natural hygiene, life sciences, health systems, and I use that as the fundamental principles, practices, and philosophies of the foundation of my life. A little context about me: if you know about Nikocado Avocado, some people know that he used to eat a lot of fruit, And I believe although homosexuality is different than transsexualism in its own way, I believe I had a significant factor in him choosing to be straight now. Even though he might not acknowledge it, I believe that I personally knew him, not too personally, but we had a heated exchange of words because we were in the same niche community, and I believe that was a factor in that. But that's not too related. I just wanted to throw that out there. Anyways,
okay, wait. So you're the leader? You're the new leader of the world?
Yep. I've had a business for 4 years. Been spending about $100,000 on it. I just created a GoFundMe too, but
wait, how does that make you leader of the world, though?
I pronounce myself as that.
I didn't vote for you.
Well, you might.
But until then, you wouldn't be leader of the world.
Well, it starts with a self-belief, and then, you know.
I mean,
fascinating.
I am fascinated. How does that relate to you having a business that you've put $100,000 into?
To grow the new global system. But you know,
okay,
about transsexualism.
Wait. I am also curious. You're claiming you made a man straight?
I don't believe I made him straight. I believe I was a significant influence in his decision. Because recently he made a video about that.
I'm genuinely curious if you've unlocked the secret of straightening out the gays. I feel like I have a vested interest in wanting to know what that is.
Sure. It relates to transsexualism in a way, so I suppose it's a good thing to talk about.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's many different ways we could approach this. I think that one of the most powerful factors could be wellness. So I think we could go that route. Does that sound good?
I guess I just want to know, like, what did you say to this man that had such a profound effect on him that he decided that he didn't want to have sex with men anymore? What did you say to him that made ladies attractive?
Well, he believed in fruitarianism, and me and my other friend, we believed in natural hygiene, life sciences health systems, which I believe I always try to approach problems at their core. That's why, you know, I called it the philosophical, you know, the principles, practices, and philosophies. So I try to approach any topic and try to get down to the root. And so I believe that when he was practicing fruitarianism,
wait a minute, you're talking about a core and getting down to the root of things. Are you sure you're not a fruitarian?
I used to identify as that, but I got deeper about it.
Your roots grew deeper?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
So my fruits grew and blossomed.
Beautiful.
I had to look this up because I'd never heard of I couldn't even tell what y'all were saying for a second. A fruitarian diet, as in like a person who eats only fruit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and by the way, Steve Jobs was not a fruitarian.
Well, he's dead, so
he's not much of anything when it comes to his diet anymore.
Sorry?
Oh man, Taylor,
he's not much of anything when it comes to his diet anymore because he's very dead.
Yeah.
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 So far, this isn't convincing me that there's a killer argument against being gay or trans.
Yeah. Gender affirming care violates the laws of natural hygiene is what I have in the screener.
Yeah, so as I was saying, he believes in. Do you want to keep talking about Nick Ricardo? But
I have no idea who this is. I have no interest in who this person is. I just am kind of fascinated about the idea that you were able to convince somebody who was only interested in men that they should be interested in women instead. And I was wondering about your argument, and it kind of just seems like you were like, it's healthier to have sex with women, and they said, okay.
Were you just so awful and annoying that it turned him off of men forever? Because I can relate to that.
That could be a part of it, but I don't think that's may be how he perceived it, not how I necessarily perceived it. But so fraternalism is a surface level philosophy of life that doesn't approach the most foundational roots of life. So at the core of transsexualism and homosexualism, I believe that the principles of life, there's 18 physiological laws of life, and these laws are as permanent, almost, I would compare them to the laws of physics. And they were created by
Can I ask real quick, where did you learn about this?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, where can I read about this?
Yeah, there's over 2,000 pieces of literature on it.
Yeah, but where did you learn about it?
Personally, I was just online, and I met someone who believed in it. He was fruit-based, and he started talking to me about it online, and then I ended up shacking up and being his roommate. And he kind of just, was my, mentor for like 2 years. And he had a bunch of books on it, and he explained it all to me.
I gotta be honest, like, what evidence do you have for this?
Yeah, so the laws of life are probably one of the most permanent pieces of that scientific evidence. But if anyone does a quick Wikipedia, they'll see that most people think immediately it's pseudoscience and that these are quack doctors. But
that is kind of what it sounds like, yeah.
Yeah, I'm very well aware that I hear that all the time, and yet I still believe what I believe because I've read about it and I've read all the literature.
But do you think that there are people who read things that might not be true?
Of course.
Yeah.
So
like, for
there's
example, like I
science.
can read a book about the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, but that doesn't mean that Thoth is living underneath the Great Pyramid of Giza with a spiritual spaceship that allows me to travel the universe, right?
Yeah, there's sound science and there's pseudoscience, and metadata and the gold standard.
Yeah. So what you're
very
talking
different
about
from
kind of sounds like it falls into the like a pseudoscientific category. So like, what evidence do you have?
And to be clear, I think what it sounds like is you're like, there's a guy who I really trust who has written about this, and I trust him. So one of the things that we want to look at, myself personally at least, when I'm evaluating information, is I want to know where the information's coming from. I want to know what other experts in the field think about it, which is why I value the process of peer review. So, instead of just when I'm doing research for something, I will basically not even read stuff that's not peer reviewed for when I'm really trying to collect hard data. If it's something, I recently am writing a paper about something historical. So I have read a couple of books that were written by a historian because I don't think that there's so much scientific studies necessarily when it comes to publishing historical data or creating a narrative around historical data. But yeah, so when I look at something, I'm like, that person went to this college, they've been working there for this many years. Here's other research they've published. Who funded the study? Is there anybody who could make? Is there anybody who could make money off of the results of this study? So Taylor, why do you trust the information? Why do you feel like that is a harder science than the other sciences that we typically look at as reliable?
Okay, yeah. So I do believe there's lots of science that is integrated, but there is some stuff that hasn't been through vigorous peer review. And that does not default, just to be clear, that we agree that just because something hasn't been vigorously scientifically tested doesn't mean it's untrue, right?
It depends on the scale of the claim, you know, like how big of a truth claim are we making about the universe? That's a factor in how much I need like double blind data to support it, right? You know, a God claim versus the claim that a trans person identifies as a gender. Like, okay, like, you know, those are two different scales of claims, and I have a much higher burden of proof for one than the other. So I can't even remember what the topic. We've brought up like 8 million fucking different things, so I don't even know what specifically we're talking about anymore, because I feel like we have gone to a place where we need to talk more broadly in a very basic way about how to evaluate information, because you have come to some wild conclusions. Go ahead, Jack. Sorry for.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, this, what you're talking about grows out of like 18th century quackery, essentially. Like we're talking about the guy who invented graham crackers, Sylvester Graham, who invented them specifically because he believed that they would be a cure for masturbation.
Is that true?
Yeah. That's
There were two guys who did that. Why?
like that's why that grows out of this belief and this system that you're putting forward here. So, like, I think that there's some kind of skepticism that's kind of warranted, right? Because the folks who articulated this believed that medicine was actually bad and that you should have a life plan to avoid any and all medicine. And so, like, there's of course elements in their lifestyle, like prescriptions, that are good, like, for example, hey, don't smoke tobacco because it's bad for you, and hey, that got validated in the long term. But other stuff, not so much. And they're like, hey, rejecting medicine whole cloth, not really good for you, especially if you get sick. And so I guess where I'm coming from here is I'm trying to determine, like, are you someone who is like the original, you know, I do believe that graham crackers are, you know, the key to unlocking, you know, your chakra so that you don't need to masturbate anymore, and that actually, as a outgrowth of this, you don't need to be gay anymore if you just eat the right things. And
well, just
is
like
that kind of where you're
movement,
coming from?
Well, so that's Sylvester Graham, and he had a bunch of kooky ideas. What we do is we take a movement, and we can pick and choose based on certain things that we believe were good from those certain people. So he's noted in natural hygiene because he had
the reason we should pick and choose from what we believe is good isn't just from like, oh, that sounds like a good idea. What we should pick and choose, it shouldn't just be arbitrary based on what we think might be good. It should be based on data.
That's not what I intend to mean.
I know,
I'm
but
talking
also,
about science.
But the reason I'm saying that what I think is kind of like the barrier here is that we already have medicine. We already have mainstream medicine that allows us to have fact-based and like evidence-based medical practices. And so I guess part of me is saying, like,
you already conceded that facts don't necessitate sound science.
No, facts do necessitate sound science. You need to have science.
Facts can make a thesis that's incorrect. The heliocentric thesis, or the Earth-centric thesis. There's been many theses that have been
wound up disproving that?
False in science.
What happened? What happened to disprove those theses? How do we know that the Earth-centric model is not, in fact, how the universe works?
A wide array of sound science done through vigorous
because we
research.
Found new facts that showed that wasn't the case. Like, simply believing something to be so doesn't make it so.
Perfect. So
Right. And so when you're like, I know some guy and I lived with him for 2 years, and that's my reason for believing these things, that's
you
not a
asked my
convincing
story. You
argument.
didn't ask what I believe about sound science.
But you're attributing your
That was my
ideas
story.
to you're attributing your ideas to a pseudoscientific method of thought that originates out of guys who believed that graham crackers would stop people from masturbating. So like,
I told you that the books include science. The man taught me about 2,000 pieces of literature that include sound science.
can you
Okay,
give us
but-
like an example?
Please, like an example, like when you just evoke the name of science, that doesn't tell me anything.
Yeah, but you keep interrupting.
Okay,
'cause
well,
you
I
kin-
just got back because I was gone for 2 minutes, so don't lay that on me.
yeah, sorry, you kind of keep like going off on tangents about like fruitarians and some guy named like Jake Avocado or something like.
Yeah, what we're trying to get to is the evidence. We want to understand why you believe
Yeah.
what you believe, because so basically we want to be able to evaluate whatever it was that convinced you so that we can evaluate that information and decide whether it's convincing to us or not. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so as I was saying, there was many people that were involved in this creation of natural hygiene, and then you guys mentioned Sylvester Graham. And Sylvester Graham wasn't a great example of the movement. There was more prominent people like Isaac Jennings, who was actually the father of it, who prescribed sugar pills, and people got well. How do people get well on sugar pills? Because
That's a very
they
well documented
obtained-
effect called the placebo effect, right?
it's not placebo. They actually got better.
No, but that is the placebo effect.
That's how they administer placebo drugs in studies.
If people get better without medicine,
Yeah.
then
Like if I have a headache and I go to the doctor and they give me a sugar pill, my headache will get better. That is how it works. And people will see a temporary reduction even in physical symptoms like flu symptoms if you administer a placebo. That's how we determine if a medicine is actually helping people or not, is we give people a placebo and the
placebo is
medicine or the medicine.
temporary. Placebo is temporary and it varies. Placebo isn't sound science. Placebo is very...
No, but it is. It's literally, I'm so sorry, Taylor. The placebo effect is a very well-documented fact. It's literally how we judge the efficacy of drugs. Is this more or less effective than placebo? Because placebo will always have an impact. Even if you give someone a sugar pill, if you tell them it will make them feel better, it will make them feel better and they will report reduced symptoms no matter what it is that they're dealing with, basically.
And also, it's pretty well established that there is a relationship between your mindset and your health. Like in terms of like, people who believe that they will get better, their immune system like is activated in response to that. It's not a cure-all. It doesn't like, it's not a guarantee if you just believe you're going to get better that you get better. But like, we know that statistically there is a relationship there between like all those different components. There's actually a really interesting study about unearned confidence and health outcomes, and it's actually quite interesting. I was reading it a few weeks ago, but that's not
so if there's
really
500,000 documented cases of people reversing diabetes, heart attack, stroke, diabetes, all the top leading causes of disease get reversed, and you're saying the placebo effect. What are you claiming?
I'm saying I want to read that study.
Are?
I'm saying I want to read that study because what treatment was administered that reversed it? Like, okay, I want to make sure I'm understanding this, Taylor. Let me make sure I'm understanding so that I don't mischaracterize what you're saying. Are you saying that the natural hygiene approach that you were describing earlier is leading to the reversal of diabetes in potentially hundreds of thousands of patients?
Exactly, and they're all documented.
Okay, so that is what your claim is. What treatment was administered, or by what mechanism did they stop being diabetic? Like, did something kickstart their pancreas to start making their own insulin again? Do you know any details about that? Because that's the kind of thing that I want. Like, okay, Taylor, I want to be clear. If any of what you just said is true, we need to contact some very important people in the medical industry because we could potentially be saving people hundreds of thousands of dollars. Actually, on a GDP
They're
level,
not
we could
taught
probably
in
be saving
holistic.
billions of dollars.
They're taught for like 12 hours out of their entire doctorate degree about nutrition. They have no interest in it. It's a business. It's for profit.
Taylor, I am not even talking about going to a doctor with this information. I'm saying I need to go directly to the American Medical Association, their administrators, their shareholders. Like, they need to be made aware that there is an avenue of research that they need to explore. If this, there should be so much evidence that it would be impossible for them to ignore.
Their entire agency would dissolve. They have no vested financial interest in that because their fundamental philosophy would disintegrate.
Okay, I'm going to ask something. I actually want to get into something specific here. I want to know what kinds of treatments are recommended in the worldview that you have, where like, if somebody was like, I have diabetes and I want to reverse it, what would they do?
Yeah, so by your verbiage, it shows me that you're under the presupposition that there is a cure, and that's the fundamental.
Okay, but that's your
flaw.
claim. That's what you claimed. You claimed that you can reverse diabetes.
I want to be absolutely clear. I do not claim that. That's the opposite of what this practice is.
I thought that I literally just asked you that clarifying. Jack, did I just ask that clarifying question?
You did.
I did just ask that. So maybe you misspoke, but I just asked you if you were making the claim that you have evidence of thousands of cases of diabetes being reversed by, what is it called, natural hygiene.
Perfect. But I did not say cure. I did not say treatment.
Oh, okay, but reverse
do not describe the philosophy.
Reverse, in this case, implies that they no longer have the problem.
Perfect. So
what do you do if you have diabetes and you want to reverse it?
Elimination and abstinence.
Oh, so the graham cracker thing.
No, that's not elimination. That's consumption.
Well, you consume the graham cracker so you can abstain from, your sexual impulses.
No, that's consumption. Did you not listen to me? That's consumption, not elimination. Elimination is abstinence. So you would not consume the graham cracker.
You're eliminating masturbation.
You would not
also,
masturbate.
I do want to point out that earlier you were arguing that, Graham is a quack. You should be paying attention to this real Chad named Isaac Jennings.
You know who... I've tried
do you understand?
Times
this
on
is a
Wikipedia.
guy. I'm sorry.
Wikipedia.
Do you understand? This is a guy who described medicine as a gross delusion in the book you referenced earlier. He is on the record in his own words talking about it.
Okay, that's an ad hominem.
It's not an ad hominem to quote a man who you are saying is a great representative of this idea. You understand?
I said I don't agree with Sylvester Graham.
I'm not talking about Sylvester Graham. I'm talking about Isaac Jennings. You understand
Isaac Jennings was a medical doctor.
He got infamous in the 1800s. And you understand, when people talk about snake oil salesmen, do you understand what a snake oil salesman is?
He's one of thousands of people that do this. So you're just ad hominem.
I'm sorry. I'm just asking, do you know what a snake oil salesman is?
Yes, I've heard that term thousands of times.
What is a snake oil salesman?
I know exactly what it is.
What is a snake oil salesman?
It's someone who sells consumptive products, which is the opposite of what natural hygiene is.
Do you know what Jennings did for most of his career?
He was a medical doctor until he learned about natural hygiene, and then he quit.
Do you know what he did for most of his career?
Most of the people who learned the truth about things,
you know how he made his money?
They were the exact opposite before they learned.
Do you know how he made his money?
Before you became atheist.
It's really important that you answer this question. You're really running away from it. Do you know how he made his money?
What does that have to do with science?
I'm just asking you, do you know how he made his money?
Moot point.
No, it's actually a pretty important one. Do you know how he made his money?
No.
He sold pills and tonics to people, and then later they found out, oh, the pills were filled with bread and the tonics were just colored water. Do you think that that would fit? Do you think that that would fit the definition of a snake oil salesman?
Are you kidding me? The medical industry is the snake oil salesman. Your mind is backwards.
Would someone who promises to give you a pill that will cure your diabetes, or someone who promises you a tonic that can cure your cancer, if they sold that to you telling you that's what it did, and you took it...
Isaac Jennings believed that his patients wouldn't believe him, so he taught... He promoted
so
it
he
as
lied
if it was
to his patients and gave them
yes,
things that have no proven effectiveness.
It's not the best approach, but he.
So
his thought process
I'm sorry. You're standing for
into the door.
I think I need to mute.
I think you
for
have
a second
to.
if you cannot have a conversation. Okay, I know you're very upset about these very inconvenient facts about the guy who founded this idea that you adhere to, but the issue here is that when you're like, well, I know what a snake oil salesman is, and also I don't know how he made all his money. This guy's entire fortune was made off of selling people cures for things that were lies. And like at the time, other people who were medical doctors wrote extensively about how he was a quack. There's an actual quote I'm going to read here from the 1867 Buffalo Medical and Surgical Journal, that he was a disgrace to the regular profession of medicine, and that any of his work in the Tree of Life was without a particle of merit. And like, this is the problem, and the reason I push back on this quite a bit is because folks like RFK Jr. push a very similar thing, where they reject the very idea of germs as a vehicle for sickness, and instead say that, you know, your problems, your medical issues can be solved by simply eating the right foods to reduce inflammation. And like, that's not true. Like, yes, reducing bodily inflammation is good, the same way like working out is good for your body, but it doesn't cure your various diseases. It doesn't generally fix your infections. If you have a septic wound and someone offers you a colored water tonic and tells you it's going to cure it, like, your family would have every right to be furious with the quack who sold that to you. So, like, I guess this is kind of where we're at, and I have a feeling that however you plan to rope, like, gayness and transness into this is going to be even more strange and bizarre, and I don't know how we can continue to have this conversation when you reject the various, like, evidences presented by, you know, the scientific community. And you say, oh, I don't do that. And yet here we are talking about a guy who literally made his money selling people bread pills and water tonics.
What do you got to say, Taylor?
Yeah, so you said the word cure again. You projected that on me for the third time. You're clearly not listening to me.
That's, you know, medical treatment, and people expect treatment to, you know, cure and or alleviate their symptoms.
What else did I say? Can you repeat what I said so I understand that you can paraphrase what I have said, so I understand that you even listen to me?
Well, I mean, I feel like I have been struggling. I feel like I've been struggling to understand what you're saying, because I still don't understand what thing you need to do. So you're saying like you need to stop eating certain things, or stop. You said abstention, and I think what we heard when you said abstain was abstain from sex, which I don't know if that's what you meant, but that's what that word kind of sounds like to me. It's like you need to change your lifestyle, Taylor, is kind of like, if we were to summarize what you are saying, natural hygiene promotes people to do, which can help their medical issues. are basically a series of lifestyle changes. Is that correct?
Lifestyle is part of it.
Well, lifestyle includes diet, includes exercise. Like, let's say lifestyle includes like everything you do to attend to your health and in your life. Like, I mean that to be very, very broad and all encompassing. So there are changes that you need to make to what you do and what you eat and how you move through the world. And then that will help you medically. That's the argument, Taylor?
I'm not going to say the word medically because that's the opposite of it, but it will help.
Well, okay. When I say medically, I want to be clear. We're talking, let's say diabetes. That's just one of the things that you mentioned that you have read about how it has been reversed, right? So when I'm saying medical, I'm talking about like, okay, this is a health problem, like a significant health problem that we typically do currently treat through the medical system. So let's say diabetes. So you're saying that there are certain changes that you can make in your life that will, and the word you used is reverse diabetes. Can you tell me about, or pick one maybe that you know more about? Do you know about any specific ailments, let's say ailments, that people have used natural hygiene to reverse the effects of and improve their quality of life?
Yeah. So if you want me to reference actual scientific literature, there's this place called True North Wellness Center, and they focus on scientific literature. But when it comes to things that I wish were in scientific literature, but the medical industry has no vested interest in performing these scientific procedures, that's very unfortunate. But I'm sure there's a few studies that True North has put out about diabetes specifically, or probably heart disease. They're probably the big ones. They've probably put out some scientific literature. But as far
unfortunately, there are like a million billion different health clinics called True North. Unfortunately, there are a million of them. Which one do you mean? The one out of Portland, or which one?
I didn't know there were more, but there's one out of Northern California.
Okay.
It's Michael Clapper and Alan Goldhammer. But so the ones, there's many case studies in these 2,000 pieces of literature from various people who have had medical degrees, medical titles, who have had nutrition titles, various titles. And well, you cannot necessarily say any of those have been vigorously peer reviewed. They have had substantial details with very, very many data points and things that would be considered scientific pieces of information.
So I have a question.
But
I believe that these people offer this treatment. All right. So I'm looking, I can see Alan Goldhammer. I can see the thing. They offer treatment there. And they're offering like an alternative type of treatment. Well, it is though, if they call it treatment.
Treatments assume that there's a product involved, that there's a physical material thing. But what I'm claiming is abstinence and elimination. So reduction and removal of things.
So one thing that I'm seeing here is that Dr. Alan Goldhammer on medically supervised water-only fasting, medically supervised, that implies to me that he has a clinic where you can go to and ask him to supervise your process here. Is that not accurate? You mentioned the True North Wellness Center. What do they do at the wellness center? Do people go there? Is that just where they have their laboratory? Do they have patients? Do they have services? What's the deal with the wellness center? Because that to me sounds like a place where people work, and it sounds to me like a place that has customers.
Yeah, that's a place. I don't know exactly what they do right now because I haven't been up to date with them. There's some things that I disagree with them, especially I don't think they're the most optimal place, but they do prescribe relatively fair to the natural hygienic principles. So I do mention them, but they have services, water fasting services.
I have a question that I want to ask you. I have their website open. I don't need you to tell me about all their services. I want to get to so the criticism that you have around the medical industry. You've kind of created this narrative where like there is lots of good data to back up what you are saying. but that the medical industry has a vested financial interest in not pursuing those lines of inquiry when it regards research. Like, like I was saying earlier, if these things really impact people's health, then we would need to study it because we want people's outcomes to improve, right? Like if this could be a part of a broader kind of approach to medical care, we should pursue that, right? And you kind of suggested that there's a financial reason why the medical industry would want to downplay this, because from your perspective, this natural hygiene stuff, oh, you can just do it without having to pay a bunch of money for healthcare, right? But the problem is that I have this fucking website open and they have there's program fees, medical management fees. Oh, so they actually say medical management fees, to be clear, initial assessment and examination fees, blood work and laboratory fees, weekly evaluation fees. This is a scam alternative homeopathic medicine industry.
Yo, you're so inauthentic. That's so inauthentic.
Taylor,
you just barely touched on who they are. I don't even believe in them anyway.
Taylor, they are making money offering a service that you just told me you don't need to charge people for.
Yeah.
And you cited these people as the ones that you think they have good data on this. So
Yeah, but you're talking about
is there any
finances, and
chance?
you
Is there any
said
chance?
scam. That's a strong word.
Taylor, is there any chance that these people produced data that confirms the business model that they offer, that they charge people for? Could there be any financial interest that might have caused them to have this information that's like, oh, well, we can reverse your diabetes?
I know where you're going with this, and
I'm not going anywhere. This is the issue. We're not going anywhere past this point.
You're trying to say that it's not metadata. You're trying to say that it's not sound science, gold standard science, that it's limited science, that it's a scam.
No. Yeah. I mean,
That's
primarily what I'm saying.
At.
I'm not ending up there. That is where we are right now. I don't need to carry it any further, Taylor. It is clear. It is obvious. Every fucking situation, I've done this dozens of times, where anytime someone's like, there's this crazy alternative approach to health and
Why
stuff
are you
where we
calling
can
it crazy?
fix
You
your stuff.
conceded that just because something is in science that it's...
Taylor, I have seen this over and over again. I have seen this over and over again. And when the claim is, oh, well, here's the thing is, oh, big pharma wants to make all this money off of you. That's why they won't look into this avenue of study. But then I look at the fucking clinic that you bring up and they charge money. So clearly money isn't the determining factor, because it turns out that if the medical industry wanted to make more money, all they have to do is go, hey, this person, come work for us. Like they could be making money doing this.
It's not
could be making money.
Because the medical industry has hundreds of thousands of studies, perhaps, and how many of those are on water fasting and elimination and abstinence?
But if there was good Taylor, if there was good data,
isn't doing that.
They should be pursuing it if there was good reason to pursue it.
That's the scam.
Also, Taylor, like earlier I brought up the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. There are hundreds of thousands of people who believe that, like, that's real. That you can create a spiritual spaceship to, like, project yourself across the universe and meet space aliens.
Crazy topics in this situation. This is an important situation, and I will not.
But
I will not allow you to downgrade this.
Dog, you need to control yourself a little bit.
I just hung up on him. I'm not dealing with that.
Sounds like Taylor needs a little bit more of that natural hygiene to reduce his level of inflammation in his personality, if you ask me.
Yeah, that was crazy.
The reason I bring up the Emerald Tablets of Thoth again is just because the reason we know that that's not true is because there's no scientific evidence for any of it. There's no scientific evidence that there's a secret chamber below the pyramids of Giza. There's no evidence that there is so many of you can make a spiritual spaceship. There's no evidence of any of that. There's no evidence that Jewish people came from Mars or whatever. Like this is all pretty wild quackery. And it's used to trick people into buying books and paying for spiritual lessons and all of that. And many of the people who participate in those activities self-report, they feel great about it. They're like on a spiritual journey of discovery, and they feel good until one day they realize they've been getting taken advantage of for years. They've been pouring money into these quacks who promise spiritual fulfillment, who promise, medical improvements, and that's not at all backed up by any kind of evidence whatsoever. And that's the same problem that Taylor was running into. That there's no evidence, there's the exact same amount of evidence for what he's talking about as the evidence behind the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. And I did bring up snake oil earlier specifically because Isaac Jennings it predates snake oil as a concept, right?
Wow.
And shortly after Isaac Jennings got his start, that's when the guy who invented, I think his name was Clark Stanley, invented his specific snake oil because he was referred to as the rattlesnake king. And so he would go around with a tonic that did not work and promise incredible medical results to people, and people paid a ton of money. And then it turned out right before the FDA got founded in the early 1900s, people looked at it and were like, oh wait, this tonic doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
But man made a fortune off of it.
That's the thing, is like, I'm sorry that your roommate brainwashed you, but this is just yet another alternative medicine industry. Oh man. And like, I don't even know that I've ever connected these thoughts before, because my homeopathy argument days were a long time ago, and my communist days are much more recent. But wow, there would be no market for this if we had nationalized fucking healthcare, would there?
Mm-hmm.
People wouldn't be able to do this, taking advantage of you by, either selling you colored water or supervising you drinking only water for a week or whatever the fuck they do in this water fasting facility. There would be no market for that if people could just go to the doctor and had access to good health care. Like, it makes sense when it was, the like 17th century or whatever, and or like whatever, the 18th century, and the doctor was just like a guy who wandered through town and sold tinctures or whatever. Like, I get it. I understand how we ended up in this situation, but yeah, man, I wish that we could devote those resources and defeat once and for all the alternative medicine industry that's just preying on people. It's, people complain about big pharma and how they want to make all this medicine. They want to keep you sick. It's so much more egregious, and like the outcomes are so much clearly worse with homeopathy. At least the medical industry cures cancer sometimes,
Yeah. And I guess I would just point out, last thing.
Yeah, go for it.
That I like, this isn't an abstract idea. This kills actual people. There are people out there who currently run our national health services that are adherents to some form of this idea. And they know that if they adopt these, you don't need vaccines, you don't need medicine, that people will die as a result. And, you're seeing it, like, just the other day, Donald Trump signed an executive order to stop recommending vaccines for children.
Yeah, and recommending it on the, like, delayed schedule or whatever, like officially changing the national guidelines to the delayed schedule.
And last point, I guess, just as a final point of irony, Isaac Jennings died of pneumonia.
Fuck you, rest in piss.
Kind of sounds like maybe he should have been adhering a little bit more closely to his natural hygiene to avoid that pneumonia. Guess that medicine plan didn't really work out for him, huh?
Well, you guys, we got about an hour left of the show. We've got a couple more calls left. We're going to try to get through them. And then we've got super chats. Get your $5 or more super chats in. We read those, and you can use them to vote. #Team Jack or #Team Lux. Whoever loses the vote has to defend a silly position. We will put a poll for that in the chat at some point. Is it already there? No, it's not already there. I'm not going to rush Arden, but it'll be there eventually. So we've got 2 oppositional callers and 1 advice call. I'm going to try to get through these. So we're going to speak first to John, he, him pronouns from Texas, who's been having some connection issues, but hopefully figured it out. John, you are live with Luxander and Riverboat Jack. How's it going?
Howdy.
Hey, can you guys hear me? All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, that last caller was pretty funny. I don't know why he started yelling at you guys, but so, okay. So I have like a few questions before I proceed with like the discussion, but so, and they're relevant to the subject. So like I'm an AMAB, like assigned male at birth. If I were to identify as a woman right now, would I be a woman?
I mean, like if you were to genuinely identify as a woman, yeah.
Okay. And my second question is, do you guys believe that well, okay, and on that point rather, so all that's required to be a woman is identifying as a woman, right? Like you don't have to take hormones, you don't have to like shave your beard off or whatever. All you have to do is identify, right?
It would be kind of shitty for me to put a bunch of qualifiers on it since lots of people can't access medicine, for example.
Yes, that's a good point. Okay. And my second question is, do you guys believe that trans women should have to like negate their testosterone in order to compete in women's sports?
I mean, different sports bodies have different rules, and I respect that I'm not a sports expert. I have more criticism of the segregation of sports in general, but like I personally don't have a problem with the current setup the way that it is in many sports leagues where it's like 2 years of cross-sex hormones. That seems to balance out a lot of the things that people are concerned about as far as like the differences in muscle tone or whatever. So as far as I can tell, that seems to be sufficient.
So you don't like a trans woman wouldn't have to take, in your opinion, shouldn't have to like reduce their testosterone levels to compete in women's sports, right?
No, I'm saying I agree that is the standard, and I'm like, that seems fairly reasonable that they do need to be suppressing their testosterone for about 2 years.
Okay,
I would be open to studying it further, but
how is that fair for trans women who can't afford that? And also,
what Lux is saying. What Lux is saying is that ideally we would find a different way to create, brackets within sports that isn't along gendered lines.
Yeah.
Because of that unfairness, figure out a more fair way of like doing our sporting competitions, because if you actually look into the history of why we segregate sports at all, it's actually quite interesting and not nearly as straightforward as people think. But that being said, we don't have a problem with like the various sporting leagues saying, hey, if you're a trans woman and you want to compete in women's sports, 2 years on HRT, given the body of evidence we have, tends to bring trans women down to parity with cis women. So in terms of fairness, that seems like a fine solution in the short term.
So I'm guessing you would oppose like a former NBA player playing in the WNBA then, right?
Why?
If they identify as trans.
Have they been on HRT for 2 years?
Well, no, but like it shouldn't matter, and I'm surprised.
That does matter because that's the regulation of the WNBA.
Yeah, and I want to be clear on my position, John. I want to be clear on my position. Just be like, okay, because the whole like hormones thing is like it's like a not great solution to the problem, in my opinion. My solution to the problem is completely eliminate sex segregation in sports and go to a model where we do height and weight classes and just go from there.
I'm sorry, I just read this dude's comment. He says I have slurs chambered. I don't even know what that means.
I generally prefer if callers ignore the chat because I'm ignoring the chat. I'm focusing on our conversation. So just to repeat what I just said.
Racist or whatever.
So to focus on the
No, I heard
conversation that
what
we're
you said.
having.
It should be height and yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I
get
heard what
rid
you
of
said. It
sex
should be based on
segregation.
height and,
yeah, the discrimination that you're talking about would be rectified by just having a different way of separating sports.
yeah, okay.
But if we don't have that, then and we have the different hormone levels or whatever, it seems like 1 to 2 years is relatively where the scientific literature says to reach like a level of fairness and parity. So like,
and that seems to be applying to all women. So basically what we're saying is we think we should have not sex segregation, but have the teams and whatever be based on height and weight or something like that. Because the current system is...
I think that's fair.
To John, I just want to be clear. The current system is your hormone profile. That's what is the determining factor for which team you play on, which is why women like Caster Semenya are no longer allowed to compete in certain things. So even non-trans women are subject to these rules about testosterone and estrogen and everything under the current system. So part of the reason why I oppose the way that we do it right now, is because this hurts other people besides trans people,
Well, yeah. And I feel bad for Caster Semenya because, to go your whole life thinking you're a woman and then discover that you're not or whatever, like that must suck. And I feel bad for
she's a woman. She just has high testosterone.
Yeah, she is a woman. Like if you went and had a DNA test and you found out
she's a biological male though.
John, if you went and had a DNA test,
no, she's not.
John, if you went and had a DNA test right now and it was revealed that you had X chromosomes, would you start identifying as a woman?
Well, okay, I'm not like a biology expert, but I'm pretty sure.
No, it was a pretty straightforward question, John. Would you start identifying as a woman if you found out you had XX chromosomes? Because that's something that can happen to some men sometimes.
Okay, I don't think...
Would you change how you identify if you learned something inconvenient from a medical test about your DNA?
Listen. If I
just want you to answer the question, man. I just want you to answer the question.
If I was turned into a woman right now,
I'm not asking about if you got turned into a woman. I'm not asking if you got turned into a woman. I'm asking.
You're not letting me say. John, you're not letting me explain this.
I'm not talking about magic.
You can have XX chromosomes, but have male DNA. Male DNA is not. It's the SRY gene. That's all that matters. It could be on the X chromosome. It's typically on the Y chromosome.
So, John, the question that she's trying to ask you right now, because I looked it up. I think that what you're saying is accurate. That Caster Semenya has like internal testes. So if you, John, were to find out right now that you shut the fuck up. Oh my God, John. If you were to find out right now that you have internal ovaries, would you stop identifying as a man?
Yes.
You're a liar.
I would be a biological woman, bro.
You're a liar.
You'd start wearing a bra. You'd start going around telling people you're she, her. Are you telling us that for real right now?
Can I talk? No.
I just think you're kind of a liar, John.
Dude, ma'am, listen, I have testicles. It is impossible to have fucking ovaries. You do understand testicles are literally
some people have both.
Ovaries. That's all they are.
You can have both.
Some people have both,
dude,
man.
Oh my God, I would be very fascinated to see if that even exists because
there are case studies of it existing. Yes, there are case studies of it existing.
Okay, anyways.
So if you found out you had ovaries, you'd start telling your friends, "I'm she, her now. I'm a woman." You'd go to your dad and you say, "Dad, I found out I'm a woman. Guess you have to start calling me she, her when you talk about me with Mom." You'd start signing up for women-only spaces. You'd start using the women's restroom, John.
It's not possible.
No, it is possible, John.
You can't have a penis and also have ovaries. That's not a thing.
You can. There are case studies of this happening. There are a number of different genetic conditions that can lead to that happening. Yeah, there are men who have...
Do you know the name of the genetic condition?
There are men who have gone in...
I know there's men that have undescended testicles and who have female genitalia, but there's no such thing as a woman that has a penis. I mean, a biological...
Here's a story from 2022. Chinese man shocked to learn he has ovaries and has been menstruating for 20 years.
What the fuck? That's crazy. I gotta look
this
that
is
up
something that this is something that can happen. It was reported in the South China Morning Post. This is something that can happen. There's also a story about a Russian man who went in to get irregular urination checked on by a doctor, and they found out he had ovaries. He also had a penis. And so when you're saying like that couldn't possibly happen, what you're trying to say is like, well, I could never possibly identify as a woman, so it's ridiculous. And that's why you then say, yes, of course I would identify as a woman if I found out I had irregularities in my DNA. But like, you're a liar. Like if you got hit by a bus, if you got hit by a bus and your penis got shaved off in the accident, you wouldn't start being like, "Oh, sorry guys, I don't have a penis or balls anymore. I'm actually a woman now." Like we know that's bullshit, John.
Well, biologically, I mean, you can't change genetics. You can't change biology.
So come back to the original question. If you had if you had ovaries, are you sincere? You would start identifying as a woman.
Or what? Would I have a vagina?
In this hypothetical situation, John, it's a surprise to you. So whatever you're currently working with, and I don't want to fucking know. Don't tell me. You people are disgusting when you jump there. I don't know if you're going to, but I don't want to. I don't care.
What do you mean by that?
You are making an anti-trans argument, and I find you fucking annoying. So anyway, to be clear, the situation is you right now, whatever your setup is right now, the doctor tells you, hey, you have ovarian tissue or you have ovaries on the inside in addition to whatever you already have. Are you going to start identifying as a woman?
You're sure? Yes, I would. Yes.
You are a liar.
I'm not though.
Actually, no, John, hold on, real quick, John. I'm gonna pause you for a second, because real quick, John, what you just fucking said is that there is such a thing as a woman with a penis. You piece of shit. Bye. Done with that fucking conversation. Anyway.
Also, anytime someone like John goes, "Oh, what do you mean by you people?" Like, it's very clearly such a bad.
What do you mean, you
call.
People? Yeah, it's a Tropic Thunder reference. I get it.
Yeah, exactly. But like, to the point that I was trying to make, like, there are a number of different genetic conditions that can lead to people being intersex. There's what I find personally the most interesting is like genetic chimerism, where like different parts of your body can have different genetic
someone
profiles.
In my community has that. Yeah,
it's really interesting. But like there's another story about a man from 2012, a man in Colorado who went to the doctor for a kidney stone and discovered he had internal ovaries.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Like, it's something that happens, and the thing that bothers me about callers like John is that they've never gone in and thought about it. They've never been tested. They've never had their DNA looked at. They've never had, they've never had themselves checked to see if they have ovaries. They just assume that their DNA is the way they assume it to be, and they just assume their insides are the way they assume them to be. And, like, so when the question gets posed to them, would you, if you found out this information, would you identify differently? Very rarely do they actually answer honestly, especially when they're calling in bad faith.
Which is that it would make no difference to you at all. Yeah. In practicality, it would make no difference. You'd be like, oh, that's a weird little quirk. I did read one of those stories recently. Yeah, it was a man who was like, I had like really low iron, and it turns out that he had been menstruating, but there was nowhere for it to go. So yeah, it's one of those things, like you just gotta address that from a health perspective. But like don't straight up lie to me, you asshole. I know that you wouldn't start identifying as a woman because that would be ridiculous. But yeah, I almost wish I had gotten his response to the gotcha at the end, but I just am so annoyed. But like, it is true. He did just claim that he would identify as a woman despite the presence of what I assume is a penis.
Yep. 100%. Yeah. And for those asking what is the name of the condition, it's ovotesticular syndrome.
Yeah. Ovotestes, yeah, like having gonadal tissue that is both, for sure. Anyway, we've got 2 more callers and we've got time to get to them. That's kind of also part of why I hung up on him. I was like, I want to get to this other caller.
Yeah, we got better uses of our time.
Yeah, for sure. We got a good clip out of it. So don't forget, everybody, we're getting close to the end of the show. We got about 45 minutes before we kick you over to Calling It Now, where I believe today you're going to be hosted with Jovan and Ari on the MAGA taking calls thing that they're doing over there because this person has a paper to write. And yeah, we'll be taking your super chats of $5 or more and have a silly thing, hashtag Team Jack, hashtag Team Lux. Whoever loses the vote has to defend the silly position. Oh, it's in their chat. It's in the chat now. So in the chat, vote on either so the loser has to defend the position of either you will not degrade my woo in all caps, puberty blockers give superpowers, or give all female athletes steroids. Fascinating concept. I know what I'm going to vote for. Man, oof. The thing that I voted for is not winning. Get your votes in. Get your votes in. All right. We've got one oppositional caller and one advice caller. So we're going to get to them in that order. Ronnie, he, him pronouns, calling from Washington. Ronnie, you are live on the line with Luxander and Riverboat Jack. How's it going?
Friends.
Hey.
Howdy.
What do you know about the Emerald Tablets of Thoth?
I've covered a lot of spirit science videos.
Fun times. That guy is full, man. That guy. That's all. That
guy's awful. He's very funny, but he's awful.
Man. That guy. ... All right, dude. How friends? You guys. I'm glad to be on. Thanks for having me. Friends. I think last time I called in like last week or something, and I got perceived as drunk. And it wasn't just you guys. It was like Jovan also agreed that I sounded drunk. I think the problem is I'm from Oklahoma. We're all ignorant down there.
I don't believe that. I bet a lot of y'all are smart.
Oh, take it from me. Born and raised, man. Ignorant through and through. But
fair enough.
If you guys can, I promise I have not been drinking.
All right, yeah, it would be a little bit early in the day anyway. But yeah, Ronnie, you want to talk about puberty blockers? So just jump right into it. Tell me your opinion.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, right, you guys. Yeah. I'd like to say I'm like really on board, and I'm about the most liberal guy you're gonna meet. Friends and intimate relationships with trans folks sometimes and whatever, blah, blah, but like this is where the ideology dips its toes into like freaking human rights abuse territory, is puberty blockers from kids. And I don't know if I may tell a little bit of anecdote about my own tale as a young man. When I perceived, it was probably just in my head, but I perceived when I was a young adolescent young man that my dilly bob was not keeping up as it should.
Wait,
I was like, oh man,
were you the one who talked? Were you the one who called in to talk about their dingaling and their dingaling being small, and that's why like you were worried about your dingaling size, and that's why you think like puberty blockers are like not like a crime against humanity because they might make other people's dingalings also small sometimes?
A little bit. It does. It's not like it might be. It's not theoretical. It's what it does by design, is keeps your dingling. So to keep young men's dingling small, it's a freaking human rights abuse, in my opinion.
But when you stop puberty blockers, your dingling will resume its normal growth if you are just going off of your, natural puberty. And if you're not, and you're a trans woman, instead it will just become more like a clitoris, which I think kind of what's desired in this circumstance.
Sure. I know the like Janet Mock, like I think she took testosterone or something so that she could do the inversion technique for her vaginoplasty when she was 18. So that there is a situation where maybe somebody might go off of hormone blockers or whatever, so that they can develop, so that they can then later get surgery. But there are also other methods of surgery now that don't require penile inversions. So so it's like not really that big of an issue. But to that point, most trans women don't want a big penis, or at least many of them. I will say many.
And I will say, in cases where trans women do want larger penises, and this is common in like the trans adult industry, where they'll cycle their hormones specifically on like a schedule. They work with the doctor to like make sure, it keeps them healthy and whatnot. But like they have like cycling hormones so that they can maintain their size and abilities
For performance reasons.
performance, etc. I'm trying to be diplomatic.
Yeah.
But like,
Man.
so I guess I'm not quite sure how this rises to the level of a crime against humanity. Last time we wound up hanging up on you because you were being really weird about
The
dinglings
penis
and
stuff,
children.
yeah.
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 So if you can restrain yourself this time, like it'd be appreciated.
Yeah. I would have to protest that I was not being weird.
You were being very weird.
You're being weird.
There,
No, I'm just kidding.
there were
Anyway.
hundreds of people watching who agreed that you were being weird. So I'm just
Well, we
asking
can move
you
past
to
it.
restrain
We're prepared.
yourself. Yeah.
We're prepared to move past it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's every day is a new day.
Yeah.
Terrible song.
So how do puberty blockers rise to the level of a crime against humanity? That's the specific thing that I'm interested in learning about.
It's just quite a bit of hubris, I would call it, to think that we're such biochemical masters of our reality or whatever, that we have complete command and control over this.
Is heart surgery
we can mess with the development
also...
of children? These kids are developing at a very crucial time of your life, man.
But most kids who get puberty blockers are cisgender kids. Like the overwhelming majority.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And they're fine.
For like a real deal medical thing, not just a thing in their head. Really?
Well, actually, if a little girl starts her period at age 8, medically there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. And like a lot of doctors administer puberty blockers because it's better socially for the girls to start their period later so that they can develop socially in the same way that their peers are. So there actually is like a lot of administration of puberty blockers to cis kids that isn't strictly medical either. Like obviously if you have precocious puberty at like age 4, then the medicine is strictly, it's like a medical, like you might like literally die early or later in your life if we don't intervene. But if you give an 8 or 9-year-old girl puberty blockers because she started her period a little bit early, then that's just for social reasons.
Right on. I'm failing to see what this is supposed to demonstrate to me, man. It's like we are not talking about the thing that I was brought up.
Well, yeah, but
we're talking about puberty blockers, right?
And Ronnie, there's no evidence that puberty blockers permanently reduce the size of penises.
Yep.
Okay, all right. Yeah, it's just it's more hubris to think that you're going to spring back. You're going to suppress it until they're like freaking pretty much done with puberty, wrapping it up, and then like but with this in your back pocket of like they can stop, we can okay, let me slow it down, then everyone calm down. It's just it's hubris.
I'm wondering,
to think
Ronnie,
that they're going to spring back. Their dingling's not going to spring back, guys.
Well, but Ronnie, we're not making an assumption. Ronnie, this isn't like a hubris. We're not making an assumption. We have data.
Yeah, it is.
And first of all, again, it is weird. We're still doing a lot of focusing on what happens to the genitals of children that is not comfortable for me. But if that's a concern, I mean, it is objectively really weird and uncomfortable, especially when we're talking about trans kids. Like trans kids, I think are at like a higher risk of being sexually assaulted as children. So I'm really, really, really uncomfortable with that intersection of like, why are we talking about whether their penises are going to get big, or why are we talking about whether they're fertile or not? But like, if we're assuming that this is like a medical concern that a family has, if the kid is like, I know I really want to be a parent later in my life or whatever, we can take appropriate measures to help them with that. I don't think that a life-saving medical intervention is hubris. And I'm also really curious, Ronnie, why you are seeming to... So part of why we were talking about cisgender kids getting this medicine is because people don't seem to have a problem with that, even when it's for only social reasons, for cis kids to receive this medicine. So why is it that you're focusing on it as being like a transgender problem? It feels like that's what's happening anyway. Maybe you oppose all uses of puberty blockers, except when it's absolutely medically necessary. Is that the case?
Friend, if I may just dial it back a little bit, what strikes me as weird is that how you always kind of trying to make people with these, I would call valid concerns for young people in their development, and and these valid oppositions to it's really ill thought out ideas, and man, it's.
I did just ask you a direct question that I don't even remember what it was because your response was so bafflingly unrelated to anything I just said.
It was about
cis
kids
you went on
receiving
and on
the same
about so much
treatment
that I
I was actually asking you a direct question. I asked you a direct question, which is why are you saying that it's hubris and so bad for us to use this medicine for trans kids, but not for cis kids?
All right, I'd like to just dial it back. Just one of the many things that you brought up was that you always kind of try to make me the weirdo.
Can you please just answer the question and then you can bring something else up? Can you answer the direct question and then bring up whatever you want to bring up?
Brought up, and you brought up like a few things, and this was one of them.
Can you start by answering the question?
A direct question.
You can do whatever else you want to do after you answer the direct question. Why do you care so much about trans kids receiving this care, and you don't seem to care about cis kids receiving this care?
Why you care so much? That's one of the, you guys have mantras for this ideology,
the
dude.
I'm asking you a question.
Why you care so much?
Ronnie, the question wasn't about why you care so much. The question was specifically why is your standard applied only to trans kids and not to cis children as well?
Yeah, that is what I'm trying to get at.
Dude, I didn't say it doesn't apply to cis children, man. It's like whatever they do. You make these bizarre comparisons between they give it to like 4-year-olds or whatever.
It's not a bizarre comparison, Ronnie. I'm going to restate it. I'm going to state what I said again because you were not listening, which I'm starting to get really annoyed about. What I said was, shut the fuck up. There are cases where an 8-year-old kid who has no medical need for puberty blockers gets put on it so that she can socially integrate with her classmates. So they put her on blockers until it's more socially appropriate for a little girl to start her period. So I'm asking you why you seem to think it's a problem because you've drawn this distinction between a medically necessary thing versus something that's frivolous only because you feel like it. Well, guess what? An 8-year-old girl who starts her period is perfectly healthy. And it is just because her parents feel like it if they put her on puberty blockers. So why is that not a problem that you're calling in to talk about?
Oh, dude, maybe it should be a problem. I mean, it's on the table. It might be a problem. Things. Does that make you feel better about it?
At least you're consistent. Yeah.
Can I ask, Ronnie, what makes your concerns valid?
Like what makes them valid?
Yeah, like what validates your concerns?
Okay. What validates my concerns?
Yeah.
Oh, man. That's a deep philosophical question right there.
Well, you're saying your concerns are valid, and surely you must have some basis upon which to say that they're valid. Or maybe you're just saying things.
I guess an assumption I've had my whole life that my concerns are valid, at least to me.
Yeah, but
I don't know what to say there, dude.
Usually a concern to be valid would have to be based upon something aside from an assumption.
Yeah, like there would need to be some demonstrated harm or something. And I think this is specifically because you said that your concern about the genitals of minor children is a valid concern. So I think it would be really important to introspect on why that is a concern for you.
Why is that a concern and why is it valid?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that you got to evaluate, right?
Know. I remember very well what it's like to be a little boy who had concerns about his ding-a-ling.
But we're talking about little girls.
Yeah, we're talking about trans girls, not boys.
I don't have an experience being one of those.
So why is this at all related?
Okay. So why is being a little boy at all related to being a little girl? Is that the question?
What, like, it's like you're saying, well, I have concerns about this orange, and we're like, but we're talking about apples. Do you understand?
I'm sorry.
Because you're talking about your experience. You're talking about your experience as a little boy and your feelings about your equipment. That doesn't have any bearing on trans girls and their relationship to their bodies.
Yeah, like what you're experiencing, Ronnie, what you're describing having experienced is gender dysphoria because your body didn't uphold like what your idea of what yourself as a man was or as a boy was. But what a trans girl is experiencing is that when things happen to her body that masculinize her, that's upsetting and it freaks her out. And she doesn't want it to happen. So when you're like, I was upset that my penis wasn't getting bigger. Well, that's how trans boys feel when I've known trans boys or trans men who are like, when I was a little kid, I asked my mom when I was going to grow a penis like my brother, and she said that I wasn't going to grow one, and I collapsed on the bathroom floor in absolute hysterics. Because people know that they're trans when they're young, they just don't have the language for it. But so what you're describing, Ronnie, is like, that's what trans guys experience when they're like, oh, I don't have, like, my penis isn't going to get bigger unless I take supplemental testosterone or whatever. So yeah, it's really interesting that you're comparing what you experienced as a cis boy to what you imagine like a trans girl might be going through. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think about that?
Friends, just that the only experience I have is my own. I don't know what to tell you about that. It's like it's just, again, we're kind of off of to tell little boys on this thing that you've got in your back pocket. This might change. You might decide. You might desist the whole time, but up until you're like maybe 17 or whatever, you're gonna keep her small. And
Ronnie,
we're not talking about little boys.
In your 20s. In your
Ronnie,
20s, it's going to spring back.
You're laboring under a misapprehension, Ronnie. You're laboring, Ronnie.
Hubris, guys. I love you.
Ronnie. You're laboring under Ronnie. You're laboring under a misapprehension. You don't seem to know. So what I'm trying to say is, I don't think you know how we approach this medically. We already talked about it at a different call earlier today, but I'll rehash it again because I want you to understand how this works. Puberty blockers, when it comes to trans kids, we only give that for 2 years, and then they have to stop taking that medicine, because if they take it for longer than 2 years,
giving them for 2 years, though, do you?
Ronnie,
it's just something you say, but then later you'll find out that Luxander doesn't actually believe you should take
I'm not done talking. Ronnie, I'm not done.
Andre, please continue. But you don't actually believe in 2 years. You shouldn't.
I'm so glad that you gave me permission to talk on my own show. You're muted now. The thing is, Ronnie, that it's not my opinion. The medical standard is they get put on puberty blockers for a maximum of 2 years, because if they take it longer than that, there are problems that they can develop with bone density. But once you take the medicine away, the puberty just starts up where it was, which does mean that there is a delay. If for some reason, and this doesn't really happen, we don't really put we don't put kids on puberty blockers thinking that they're trans, and then they come off of them and resume cisgender puberty for the most part. We don't even give puberty blockers to people unless we're like 112% sure that they're going to go on to take cross-sex hormones, right? So it's only 2 years. That's not my opinion. We are not giving people puberty blockers up until the age of 17. We're talking about like maybe somebody, for trans-related reasons, they receive puberty blockers at, let's say, age 13, and then they take it for 2 years, and then maybe at age 15, their doctor and their parents consent to them starting cross-sex hormones. And then maybe they do need to do something medical about the penis situation. Like I said, Janet Mock had to take testosterone or whatever to make it possible for her to have the procedure that she wanted to have. But it's not hubris to think, oh, puberty is going to resume and everything will be fine, because that's what we've seen happen over and over and over and over, and every single fucking time they let puberty resume, and everything is basically okay. It's just a little bit later than it would have happened otherwise. That's it. I don't know. Like, I'm remembering that we've talked to him before, because he's like, they're just going to do it later. Yes, Ronnie. Yes, they're just going to do it later.
My challenge to Ronnie is that when he is unmuted, that he actually responds to anything that you said.
What?
Yeah, true.
Do what later? What are we talking about? You're just gonna do it later.
Ronnie, you instantly failed my challenge.
Yeah, you didn't listen to anything I just said.
You're gonna grow your dick later?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm really skeptical of that.
Yeah, that's how that works, Ronnie. Yeah. That's how it works in cis kids. It's how it works in trans kids. Like, that's how hormones work, Ronnie.
It's not hubris.
It's medical science, Ronnie.
Listen.
Demonstrated medical science.
Ronnie, if a little boy starts puberty at age 5 years old and his penis starts to get bigger at age 5, okay, can you imagine the situation? Are we at the same place? Are you caught up?
Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay,
Right.
so a little boy at age 5, his penis starts to get bigger, his balls start to descend. He's starting puberty. We put him on a puberty blocker, and then the penis stops getting bigger, and it stays little until when, I don't know, age 12 or 13, when they decide to take him off of it, and then the penis starts getting bigger again from that point. Are you able to grasp that situation?
Dude, I grasp that you're amazing at changing the subject.
It's not changing the subject, Ronnie.
the
It's
thing
literally
you
the
do-
same
it
thing.
kind of is.
No, it's not.
It's
Okay, let's say
tangentially
Ronnie.
related.
Let's say Ronnie that they keep him on puberty blockers until age 16. So for a whole 11 years, his penis started to grow when he was 5, and they paused it until he was 16, and then his penis started to get bigger. But it's going to take a longer time now, or it's going to happen later because they kept him on the medicine for too long. They kept him on the medicine for too long, you know? So that it's just going to happen later, though. You grasp that it's just going to happen later, right?
The scenario grows more elaborate.
You're a
Tell
fucking
me about
idiot.
it.
Okay,
Ronnie,
I'm done with it. I'm sorry. I'm hanging on people. I'm hanging up on people today.
That's okay. Like, Ronnie claimed not to be drunk, which just leads me to my follow-up question: if Ronnie is high, because like,
I
it
mean,
was honestly
in Oklahoma,
like,
I don't know.
in the back end chat here, I'm just like, I genuinely can't tell if Ronnie is incapable of putting two ideas together, or if he's trolling, or if he's like some weird pervert calling in. Like, I can't tell. I don't know. And maybe
Yeah.
maybe he's just really high, and this is something he does because he thinks he's brilliant when
Maybe, I don't know.
I have no idea. But like, that guy has zero capacity to be productive in conversations.
Hey man, talk about a big old hubris on a trans kid, you see?
What are you talking about? Hubris isn't real.
I don't want to put this chatter on blast too much, but someone said that they discovered that they had low T in their 30s and then started taking testosterone, and their wing wang got a little bit bigger. So it can happen even in your 30s.
Yeah.
Damn.
Hormones are powerful at all ages.
It's true. Anyway, we have one more call left, and that's a friendly call, and we're going to have to keep it a little bit short because we still got super chats to get to. Your $5 or more super chats will be read aloud by us, your hosts, at the end of the show. Get the votes in, hashtag Team Lux or hashtag Team Jack, no hashtag no vote. And the loser of that vote has to defend a silly position, which right now it looks like the position that's winning is, "You will not degrade my woo." Shout out to that guy whose name I've already forgotten for providing some material for us to work with today. Unlike the last caller who wasn't, that's a penis joke. That's a tiny penis joke. That's, I just got to stop while I'm ahead on that one.
I mean, yeah. Ronnie is a walking tiny penis joke. And I don't know if it's on purpose or not. That's the worst part.
I know, right? That's crazy. He really developed a complex about it for those 2 years or whatever that he experienced a delay. I haven't asked him how he resolved that. I'm curious though. What happened, Ronnie? I'm in suspense. Please tell me how you fixed your tiny penis problem.
Yeah, we all need to know.
Yeah.
What was his hubris?
We're all waiting in suspense. Anyway, we're going to talk to our last caller, who is Fishy, she, her pronouns, from Malaysia, who wants to get some advice. So, Fishy, you are live with Luxander and Riverboat Jack. How's it going?
Howdy.
Hi. Good morning from Malaysia.
Ooh.
Good morning.
Well, tell us a little bit about your situation so we can help get you some advice and get you going.
Anyway, there is a friend. Let's call them friend A. They came out from a non-binary situation when I first know them, and then now they are slowly transitioning towards like trans woman identity. Then this friend B of ours, the friend B is a cis woman. She is accepting of my identity since she met me as a trans woman ever since we first met. But for friends A situation, they are viewed as a man before this. So yeah, the friend A identity really is not really accepted by friend B for now because of how they met. So I tried to convince friend B that friends A transition identity needs to take time for all to digest. So, but friend B is quite insistent on viewing friend A as a man for now still.
Well, I mean, it's really tough there in Malaysia, right? Like, it's not a particularly friendly country to LGBTQ people. So, I guess, it like makes sense to some degree when cis people are like, if somebody's going through a lot gender-wise and they haven't figured out where they're landing, for that person to be like, why don't you figure it out when it's less complicated and then tell me about it? Like I've been like that sometimes. Like sometimes I've got a person who I know who's changing their name too frequently. So I just call them by their online handle and I stop trying to update on their name because I'm like, whatever. I don't need to keep updating my brain every 5 seconds. As far as like trying to convince this person, I think probably the best explanation would just be like, look, this person is in the middle of exploring. They still haven't figured out what's going on yet. But we're going to try to be like as kind to them as possible until they have the right answers or until they have the answers. And like also you just have to kind of have a lot of grace, unfortunately, for the fact that this is a change for people. Like internally, you have maybe you or your friend or whoever has had a lot of time to adjust to the gender change. But then for people externally, it can sometimes feel like a sudden change or like I've known you for 20 years as a man. So you're asking me to change something overnight and it's just going to be too hard, blah, blah, blah. Those people often just need a little bit of time to cook that, they just need to incubate and like sit on it for a little bit. So yeah, just trying to emphasize that, y'all are friends and you're trying to be kind and understanding to each other during what's a kind of difficult process,
Yeah, it is kind of one of those things where I think consistency helps a lot for folks who are not, not necessarily great at intuitively grasping that sort of change in gender identity. And so like having that change be demonstrated as consistent going forward is going to like over time make it easier, I think, for folks like your friend to accept it. But I think in the short term, just being like, hey, it's the kind and considerate thing to do to just, understand that, friend A is having a really hard time and we're going to be there for them and like we're going to support them the best we can. Even if you don't necessarily get it right now. Does that make sense?
I guess I'm just a bit frustrated on maybe
It's
I'm
fair.
pushing friend B too fast forward, I guess, for the change. Even in the name. Friend A changing names.
There you go. Sorry, I thought you cut out for a second, but no, it makes sense. Like you as a trans person, you're like, I want to convince this person to be open and facilitating to, because it's a person who's early in their transition as well. So you're like, I know that that's a very important time, a very sensitive, vulnerable time for a person to be, understanding that they're trans, but nobody around them is accepting that yet. So it makes sense for you to be doing what you're doing, and at the same time, pressing too much can sometimes backfire, basically. So give it a little space to breathe, make your position clear, and do your best to provide a bridge of understanding. Because if this friend believes you about your gender and is okay with you and your gender, then that's a way in, like that's a way in for this person.
It's a bridge.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess I'll continue to act as a bridge for now and not try to press too much on insisting friend B to just call friend A by the new name.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And being a friend for friend A is really important right now. Yeah, go for it. Whatever you're going to say.
I was just gonna say, yeah, being there for your newly out and newly transitioned friend is really important, and it's admirable and good that your impulse is to stand up for them. And unfortunately, friend dynamics can be really complicated, and you can't like force one friend to like arrive at the point you want them to be necessarily. But one thing you can do is just to like keep pointing out, hey, you accept me, and it's important to me that you also accept that.
Yeah.
And I think eventually that should work. Ideally.
Fingers crossed, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I guess this is all I have for now. Thank you for accepting my call.
Yeah, thanks for
of
being so
course.
patient on the lines. We appreciate it, Fishy. And
Yeah.
we wish you luck out there.
All right.
Absolutely.
Good day.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it was morning. Good morning in Malaysia. Yeah, like 5 hours ago tomorrow is that kind of part of the world.
Yeah.
That's how I keep it in my brain anyway. So shout out. Go ahead.
Sorry. I was
No,
just
go
gonna
ahead,
say
please.
that's such a tough situation too. Like you want your friends to all accept each other,
Mhm.
and it's hard when that doesn't happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Even your friend group that includes other trans people. Like sometimes it just doesn't work that way. Well, it's time for super chats. Get your $5 or more super chats in. We are reading those. Get your votes in on those super chats. Hashtag Team Jax, Team Jack, hashtag Team Lux. I combined our names for a second there. Jax. Jax. That's what it is. That's funny. Anyway, get your votes in. We're gonna read them. We're gonna have a funny little thing that we do at the end of the show. Anyway, thank you, Pip, for the £5, who says shout out to Little Kuribo, the creator of Yu-Gi-Oh! The Abridged series, who recently came out as a trans woman. Her name is B now. Hashtag Team Lux.
Congrats to her.
That's so sweet.
Love Little Karibo.
Yeah. Okay. Wait, I actually have to click these.
Thank you for the $5. Legally Mod. My one regret about transitioning is that I never get to be a drunkle.
Yeah, but you can be a wine aunt.
True.
So you've got that going. How many do we have? Yeah, we got a good number. Let's get through them. All right. Joshua, thank you for the $5, who says, in 5 years, we'll be seeing a flood of satire of second screen experience media, which I predict will unfunnily miss the actual problems with the genre. Hashtag Team RBJ. That's so interesting. Yeah. Oh, I'm going to be on the lookout for that. Like independent films satirizing the second screen experience media. Ooh, that's fun.
Yeah.
Thank you for giving me another reason to live, Josh.
Hot take. Like, no one should set out to make a second screen experience.
No.
I feel like that's just missing the point completely of why people have second screen experiences in the first place. But,
yeah. I'll read this next one. We've got Stomp with the 10, or Stomp 10 with the $5. Thank you. It says, great show today, friends. I'm hoping B calls back so he can update us on his book preferences. Hashtag Team Riverboat Jack. Yeah, we're not taking B anymore. That was fun, though.
Am I supposed to press this?
Yeah,
next
you can
button?
click send.
Okay. I've never pressed the send button before.
Exciting.
Thank you for the $10 super chat. 8 Grant Rants United 8. Silence, Lux. I, Riverboat Jack, am speaking. I am just overcome with relief that Mitch McConnell is home safe. I can finally kiss his little raisin toes without his stupid wife watching us. Hashtag Team RJ.
Wow. That's always fun. Thank you so much. Thank you, Trans Leona, for the $5. I swallowed some water earlier and I tried to breathe it in and I still have not recovered. I'm still like, okay, anyway, because I don't have any other water to drink to clear it out. Anyway, Trans Leona, thank you for the $5, who says, so a guy named Bill lied to Jovan about taking HRT today. He said he took 2 injections a day for a year and God told him not to. LMFAO. Hashtag Riverboat Jack. Whoo! She was speed running.
2 injections per day.
That's crazy.
That's wild.
Is that somebody who is diabetic and is using a diabetics approach to what injecting medicine is like? That seems interesting.
Like, I have no idea what that would even do to the human body. Joshua Everett, thank you for the $5 super chat. A potential treatable 3% loss of bone density or uncontinued existence. I literally can't tell which one is better. Too many colors 2026. Hashtag Team RBJ.
That's true. Legally Mod with the $5. Fuck New Jersey. Hashtag Team Jack. This is a blowout so far.
Thank you for the $10. 8 Grant Rants United 8. I, Riverboat Jack, want to pause reading super chats to vulnerably share my dream blunt rotation. Ted Cruz, John Money, Michael Knowles, Chloe Cole, and Greg Gutfeld. I swear this is how I really feel. Hashtag Team RJ.
Oh no, fucking Michael Knowles. I can't imagine being high around that guy. Like his
have you seen Greg
mouth
Gutfeld
is so
though?
wide. No, I don't know who that is.
Oh, he hosts a show that's on Fox called just Gutfeld with an exclamation point.
Okay.
And he's a late night comedy guy.
Okay.
And he's like the incarnation of terrible conservative comedy.
I can see that. Yeah.
Thrust into the body of one man, and he's truly loathsome.
Yeah, that seems terrible. Yeah, I just Googled him, and one of the first things that pops up is a thing from Facebook from him saying like the false spectrum of ideas, and the picture is of a male and female symbol, and then on the next to it is a transgender symbol with the 3 prongs.
Mm-hmm.
So that looks exciting. Anyway, thanks for that terrible mental image of a nightmare blunt rotation.
The worst part about it is that Ted Cruz would probably be the chillest one on that panel.
He would be. Ugh.
I hate that.
Ugh. Thank you, I'll no recoup. Who says with the $5? Who says hashtag Team Riverboat Jack? The card shark scamp on an ecranoplan.
I love
Cool.
Ecranoplans.
I don't know what that is. What is that? Is it from Halo?
Oh, they're ground effect vehicles. So they're like a hybrid between a boat and a plane.
Oh,
and
cool.
They use a unique effect of when airplanes get close to the ground, that the cushion of air under the wings keeps them aloft. So once they get going, they can just like cruise at several hundred miles an hour close to the ground.
That's cool.
Or close to like the ocean surface. Yeah. And I have a whole thing where in my ideal world, we reinvent global shipping to just use Ecranoplans.
That would be
because
fun.
The bigger they are, the more efficient they are, and the higher they can fly.
That's
because
cool.
The bigger of the cushion they have. So you could have like passenger liners and shipping containers, same vehicle. And I think it'd be so cool. And you could ship things at hundreds of miles an hour around the world instead of at the speed of a boat.
Do you write? Because that's world building right there.
I mean, I do. I have been known to write some D&D worlds in my time.
There we go. What were you going to say, Arden? Sorry.
Since we do have quite a few super chats and a lot of them are David Haxer doing the David Haxer thing, you're going to have to just like bust through them. David Haxer has been burned by me saying this guy again many times, and I think he can tolerate it if you just do that. I don't know. We got to go fast.
Okay, yeah, we'll do it. Thank you for Mira Featherbender's $5. Call out bad actions, not bodies. Hashtag Team Jack. True.
Hell yeah. David Haxer, thank you for the 139.31 Canadian dollar dues.
Very
Hello,
generous,
Jack.
Thank you.
Hello, Luxander. Hope you are well. Glad to see y'all fighting for basic human rights. Hell yeah, never stop.
Yeah. Thank you, Jazz Dog, for the $5. I regret to inform you that you are now a normal rat. Hashtag Team Jack.
Hell yeah. And Elliot K, 1986. Hey, Lux, make sure that Erica gets all the puns on Monday.
I'll do my best. Canadian $10, David Haxor, also hashtag Team Jack.
Thank you for the $10 Canadian, David Haxor, and Team Lux.
Thanks. For the $10, real Marshcuz Holloway roommate. Indeed.
Thank you for the $5 super chat. C Gray 08. Taylor turned someone off. Men forever. I believe it too. Thanks for the laugh. Hashtag Team Lux. I forgot that he talked about making someone straight.
It was his general demeanor.
Yeah.
Thank you, Fishy, for the $5. Oh, this is for you. Yeah, go for it.
I, Riverboat Jack, am very skeptical of the claim that a more fruity diet would make you less gay. Hashtag Team RVJ. I did want to make that joke. Thank you for making it now.
Thank you, Meg, for the $5, who says the Mormon Church has taught that masturbation is bad and conversion therapy works for over 100 years. Taylor is just repeating cult shit. LOL. Hashtag Team Lux. True.
100%. Your parents had sex. Thank you for the $5 Canadian. Hail mute button. £, Team Jack. Thanks. There's a hashtag there, so I think it technically counts.
It does. Yeah. Thank you, David, for the $10, who says the poor back the rich because they think they might one day be rich. Trump supporters censored by YouTube. True.
Not censored by us, though. Thank you. Babs Barrett, thank you for the £2. Alternative medicine equals alternative to medicine.
True. Mira Featherbender says, you know what we call alternative medicine that works? Medicine. Hashtag Team Jack. Thank you very much for the Tim Minchin reference. I appreciate it. Thank you, God, for fixing the cataracts. Anyway.
David Axer, thank you for the $5 Canadian. Taylor.
Indeed. David Haxor, I will not allow you to. Muted. Actually hung up. But I think either one would have been very funny. And yeah, it was good.
Thank you for the $5. Burning Sock 5. Taylor crashing straight into a mountain. Hashtag Team Jack.
Thank you, David, for another $5 who says, I too care about human flourishing. Does that make me a communist? Yep, it sure does.
Thank you for the $5. Russosaurus. My poor auntie had a similar crash out defending the guy who was scamming her. It was really sad. Yeah.
Mega disappointment. Thank you so much, Fiona, for the $5 who says, John, I'm intersex and I had both. They are underdeveloped, but I have both organs. Fucking got him.
Thank you for the $2. Agents Miskatonic. As an Oklahoman, he is probably drunk.
You can change the thing at the top to switch to $5 ones. And it won't keep showing you the $2 ones.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I love you less than $5 donors.
Yeah. Thank you, David Axe, for $5. Puberty in girl can be triggered early if you trump them. Did not know that. Hate that. That's information I wish I didn't have, but thanks.
David Hexer, thank you for the $5 Canadian. My ding-a-ling, my ding-a-ling. I want a song about my ding-a-ling.
True. Show me your genitals. Remember that one back in the day?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, David Haxor, for the $5, who says sing. Nope.
We're crunched on time.
We had more time.
David Haxor, Ronnie.
Indeed. You're out of your element, Ronnie. Thank you, Mr. Poe.
Oh, I'm sorry. Stella, thank you for the $5 dono. I hate my job. All I do is crush cans all day. It's so depressing.
You did it. David Haxor with the $5. If you're high, send super chats. If you are not high and want to be, send super chats. True.
Thank you for the $5. Space Barbarian 3484. How do we avoid pathologizing people who are fun weird when describing others with unpleasant behavior? Creepy, disturbing, something else? I mean, I think you need to use just different language, because weird, I think, should mean fun weird, but
yeah.
Using more negative connotations with your words.
Focus on your own experience. Say, I was uncomfortable when so-and-so did such and such. Don't focus on the other person. Focus on your own experience, because that's the only thing you have control over. Thank you, Winnie, for the $10, who says, sent with love from Jovan's mod team and screeners. Fabulous show, you two. Looking forward to seeing you over in the Calling It Now chat on Jimmy's channel with Ari and Jovan. Hashtag Team Jack. I will not be there, but I hope that you all enjoy yourselves.
David Haxer, thank you for the $5 Canadian. Hashtag Team Jack 10.
We're not reading any more of those. Don't you dare. SJL, thank you for the $5. Says, I never heard of second screen experience. What about the third screen and fourth screen? Or that could be undiagnosed ADHD. Hashtag, no hashtag, no vote. We got a quote, Team Lux.
Oh, no.
Thank you, though.
Billy Sipes, I've had the misfortune of meeting Greg in person. Sad face.
That's
Thank
terrible.
You for the $20.
Oh, that's awful. David says, quotes are not pounds. The previous message, vote does not count. Hashtag Team Riverboat Jack. That's true.
That is true. Trans Leona. Oh, it didn't go through. There we go. Trans Leona. Thank you for the $5 dono. Trans God here. Just want to clarify. We made a second to last callers. Wang small as a joke. Hashtag Jack.
True. Thank you, David Haxter, for the 50. Very generous. Again, this guy again. Arden. True.
Thank you for the £5. The Fuzzy Logic. Has there been a schism in Jovan's crew? Love you, Winnie. Hashtag Team Lux. No idea what that means.
No drama farming in my chat. $5 from Brutus, who says, not high. Wish I was. At work. Can't be high. Love from the Twin Cities. Hashtag Team Jack.
Hell yeah.
Sad.
Thank you for the $5. Tuscanary. 30-year-old finally admitted I'm non-binary and still finding myself maybe even more gender fluid, to be honest, looking for advice on maybe being more open with it. Hashtag Lux.
I'm literally going to write a fucking book about it, so just wait 6 weeks, because I'm going to spend my entire school break working on that. Anyway, that's the end of the Super Chats.
Charging up the clock. Jack won.
I lost
Lux,
so bad.
Go for it.
So bad. Listen. I gotta say, I am really, really attached to my tarot cards. Okay, you can't take these away from me. They're mine. They tell me the future. They helped me cure my cancer. Okay, I cured my cancer with this tarot deck right here. I gotta say, this tarot deck. This one made me worse. This one made me have double, triple cancer. This one's a bitch. This one's an asshole all the time. Literally every single time I use this tarot deck, it's like mean. I'm like, what did I do to you? Anyway, this tarot deck, however, saved my life, and you can't take it from me. If you try to take it from me, I'm gonna lose my fucking mind, okay? And on top of that, I've also been taking, shots of formalin, which is totally normal and a good thing to do. Don't ever fucking do that. I'm making a horrendous joke about preservation of dead things. Don't drink formalin. I just have some right here, which is why I think that this is like, it's either formalin or, I don't know. Look at it. It's a tiny frog, and my tiny frog is giving me prophecies of the future. And he is telling me that I need to keep doing tarot every day to keep my cancer away. Okay.
What's his name?
His name is Josh. I didn't actually have anything ready for that.
I'm sorry, I just needed to know.
I don't usually name my dead specimens, but that is an interesting thing that I'll have to think about more. But no, he tells me the future. That's the important thing that Josh does. I just realized that that's Jesus. I named him Jesus. Together, the power of woo compels you, and you too can get rid of your cancer. And I also reversed my diabetes. And I also reversed my hair loss. Oh, and I also reversed my erectile dysfunction. Can't miss that one. It's critically important. Woo.
and you convinced a fruitarian to be straight.
That's true. That's true. With my very presence. Oh no, there's something on my hands. I gotta go wash my hands now.
Oh,
that's the end of the show.
Bye, everybody.
Go to stick around. You'll be sent to the politics show next. Go to patreon.com/calltheline. Support us on there, and get to see LineCon and stuff. And eventually we'll do LineCon in person, maybe. And support Riverboat Jack and check out her streams, and also check out my streams.
It's true. We both have shows outside of this. Bye.
Bye.